Welcome to Skylife, people. We're going to try it again. We're going to open it up with a beat. Uh-oh, hold on. Let's start at the beginning. Come on. Okay, here we go. Yes, sing, Lord. That's 3-piece again, y'all. Had to run them back. Had to change it up. That's Picture Your Body. Picture Your Body by 3-piece. Look, I would play some Kels, but they be trying to give me copyright strikes. So we still gonna keep it R&B in Chicago though. I just switched it up. What's good, people? What's good? Who got it? Who got it? Let me see who in here. Now I don't know what's going on. I don't know if y'all unsubscribing, but see, my moderator list got messed up. So if y'all wrench is gone, y'all need to tell me because I don't know. I'm about to set this thing to subscriber only mode, and that way I don't have to say, "Hey y'all, then go ahead and subscribe." So give me 1 second, okay? Matter of fact, let me play one more beat while I figure this out. Which one we gonna play? He said bodies, huh? Okay, let's play this one. I like this one too. Y'all listen to this. This is for ladies only. I already know that you want me. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me, me on top of you. Ladies only. I already know that you want me. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me, me on top of you. And I'm covered in your perfume. I got candles on the footstool. I got roses on the bed for you. As I lay down gently, ooh, your body's calling me. Sexual healing. When I rub you with this lotion, your legs begin to open. And I catch this feeling. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me, me on top of you. Ladies only. I already know that you want me. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me, me on top of you. You want a bubbling one, and your body's looking good and no storms. Radio low, got Kelly on. Cause you know I'm about to make your body move. Now she's climbing on my mountain, here she comes. Now she's climbing up my mountain, here she comes. Now she's riding on my mountain. Ooh, that booty's bouncing. I can't control this fountain, here I come. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me, me on top of you. Hey, y'all. Hey. Want me. Let's not waste no time. Let's do what we came to do. You on top of me on top of you. Nasty with you. I don't think I wanna sing no more, no more. Just listen to the music. Good God Almighty. Good God Almighty. I don't wanna sing no more. The music on. Man, if you're listening, turn the music down. Let's go to the next song. All right, y'all. Hold on, let me make sure that's paused. Who got it, y'all? Let me see who in here. That was 3-piece again, ladies only. So I got it set up. I ain't get a chance to figure out that other piece, but I get it together. Hey, y'all. Who's in here? Chi-Town. I see 71 Suburban, 312, and Elvira. Hey, y'all. Oh, it must be some other people live. I know what time it is. D Sims, what's good? I'm in the building. I'm like a gremlin, deep East Oakland, California. What's good, Nell Taylor 50? Hey, what's good, y'all? Yes, get them likes up. If any of y'all wrenches is messed up, let me know, because I don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody deleted the people or y'all unsubscribed and came back. I don't know. If any of y'all wrenches is missing, let me know. Yes, please get the likes up. I need at least 15 likes. Court, what's good? If your wrench is missing, let me know. Okay? I don't know what's going on. All right, y'all. So today, as you know, the channel is growing. We doing good. Let me clear my throat. The channel is now offering, you could do like donations to the channel via Cash App. Actually, you know what? Let me just put the banner up there and then y'all could see. You could do super thanks, you could do super stickers. And also, I'm gonna try and see if I can get these transcripts. However, I am gonna ask for donations because I'm gonna get the total amount for these transcripts. But I'm gonna try and get the ones that I can. But I do need donations. So if you could want me to continue to read these transcripts, just whatever you can, send it to my Cash App. Anything's gonna help because they are double, really triple what they were last time. Last time they were, I believe it was a 70 cent or $1 a page. Now they saying they $3 a page. So, and it, you know, and I'm nosy. I don't know about y'all, but I want to know what's going on. Hey, Candy Jones, what's good? Elvira, Court. Let me make sure I ain't miss nobody. Nell, Chi-Town, 312, D Sims. I hope I ain't missed none of y'all. Okay, y'all, we about to get right into it because show y'all some 100 pages. Okay, we about to get in here. Y'all hold down the fort and we gonna get started. Okay, let me add this. I hope y'all can see it. Why does my screen look all little? Oh, let me come out of there. That little baby screen. Okay, it's a little bigger. I don't know why it's so. I don't like that. Y'all, they trying to change us up. Good looking out, Nell Taylor 50. Thank you, baby. Much appreciated. Y'all, I don't know why my screen is looking like microism. Miss Lady T, what's good? Nene B, what's good? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. I hope it looks good on y'all end. I'm about to go to the other side and start reading. And we gonna go from there. All right. Okay. So let me go over here and read. I ain't gonna be able to see y'all. So let's get started. Free cows, y'all. Free cows. I hope y'all can hear me. Okay, here we go. In the United States District Court for Northern District of Illinois. Hold on, matter of fact, I could watch the live chat from here. Oops. I wonder why. Oh, okay. Hold. That's why. You would hit play. I need to be caught up with the chat. Okay, there we go. All right, y'all. For the Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division, United States of America, plaintiff versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, a.k.a. R.Kelly, Daryl McDavid, and Milton Brown, a.k.a. June Brown, Chicago, Illinois, August 17th. I hope this the first day. Let me make sure I got the right one. Is this day one, y'all? Let's see, August 17th. No, that's Wednesday. Okay, so we missed jury deliberation. Okay, so we got day one of the opening. Okay, here we go. So this volume 3B transcript of proceedings, trial before Honorable Harry D. Linenweber and the jury. Appearances for plaintiff. Okay, we don't have to read all that. Basically his attorney, Jennifer BonJean. Court reporters in there. Appearances for the defendant. Okay, I should read that. For the defendant, Daryl McDavid, law offices of Vadim A. Glozman, and then law office of Bo B. Brindley. For defendant Milton Brown, Federal Defender Program. Oh. Does that mean he doesn't have a looks like he got a federal defender. Oh wow. Yeah. This it's expensive going to this federal court, y'all. You know, people think it's a game and it's not. Okay, here we go. Proceedings heard in open court, jury out. Miss BonJean, I would like to put something on the record. I don't think we have all counsel. The court. Okay. Miss BonJean, you wanted to put something on the record? Miss BonJean, yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Your Honor, defendant Kelly would move for a mistrial. BonJean coming out the rip. Wait a minute, moving for mistrial. Wait. Prior to trial, we moved to sever our case from defendant McDavid. As the court may recall, the response was that we were manufacturing some type of conflict. I know the court denied that motion, and I'm just, for the record, pointing out that during the opening statements, it does seem to appear that Mr. McDavid not only intends to engage in some finger pointing, which this court has recognized may not be sufficient to justify severance, but fundamentally their defense is that ultimately these video clips were in fact child pornography, that just Mr. McDavid didn't know about it. So that puts Mr. Kelly in this position where he really can't defend against those claims. Oh, Lord, she came out the rip. Motion to mistrial. Look at her. Y'all just always pay attention to know that BonJean is always building for her appeal if necessary. Okay. Let me keep reading. And also, I do have some concerns because it sounded to me as if Mr. McDavid was part of this legal team and that communications that were conveyed in the context of this legal team could be privileged communications. Wait a minute, is she saying he got privileged communications? I do have some concerns because it sounded to me as if Mr. David, as part of this legal team, and that communications that were conveyed in the context of this legal team could be privileged communications. So I do think this creates some problems. I'm just moving for a mistrial based on those grounds in our prior motion for severance. Thank you. The court. All right, thank you. The motion is denied. I don't think that that's a problem at this point. Are we ready? Want to have the jurors come in, please? Jury in. The court. All right, you may be seated. Miss Leon, you may give the argument for Mr. Brown. Miss Leon, thank you, Your Honor. The court. Excuse me. Opening, not argument. I'm sorry. Excuse me, opening, not argument. Opening statement on behalf of defendant Milton Brown. Miss Leon, hindsight is 2020. The government's case against Milton Brown depends entirely on the benefit of hindsight. The government is asking you to view this trial against Milton Brown based on all the information that is now known in 2022, when you have the benefit of knowing more information than he had available to him in the early 2000s. The government's case relies on the fact that humans have a hindsight bias, which is that human tendency of perceiving past events as having been more predictable than they truly were at the time they happened. They want you to believe that Milton Brown was part of this alleged conspiracy, but the evidence or lack thereof will prove that he was just an assistant who day in and day out fulfilled his employment duties. He had no knowledge of the secrets that his employer, Robert Kelly, held close and hidden from the world. He had no knowledge of any conspiracy and no knowledge that the individual portrayed in the VHS tape was a minor. Ooh, y'all. Okay, I thought they was working together. It's clear right here. They throwing each other under the bus. Milton Brown attorney is clearly throwing Kels under the bus, y'all. Clearly. Okay, let's keep going. To understand why or why not, that is, we have to go back, way back. Forget everything we know about Robert Kelly. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of Milton Brown from the late 90s into the mid 2000s. You hear that? She said, forget R.Kelly. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of Milton Brown from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. Ooh, she getting nasty. In 1997, small town Mississippi native Milton Brown, unequipped with a high school diploma, moved to Chicago to be closer to his parents with the dreams of breaking into the music industry. He found that opportunity. He hit the jackpot when he was offered a position to work with R. Kelly. R. Kelly at the time was known as a multi-Grammy Award winning superstar with multiple platinum records, chart-topping songs, and a legion of devoted fans. This was the lens through which Milton Brown viewed R. Kelly when he began working for him in 1997. Milton Brown served as one of countless assistants to R. Kelly, and serving as an assistant to the celebrity meant wearing many hats. Milton served as a driver, taking Kelly and his family, Kelly's friends, singers, musicians, mentees, and their family wherever they needed to go. Milton served as a runner, a staffer who went to the bank and picked up cash at the superstar's frequent request. Milton would even transform into a basketball player when the superstar needed individuals to play against in his late night pickup games. You'll learn that these various tasks were not only asked of Milton Brown, but also of the many staffers who worked for R. Kelly. The government wants to believe that Milton Brown served as a right-hand man to his employer, but you'll hear that R. Kelly surrounded himself with a number of people. The number of people that at R. Kelly's beck and call on any given day and at any given hour range from agents to business managers, lawyers, accountants, a variety of artists, and other staff members. Some were high on a totem pole, others were assistants, runners, and errand boys, just like Milton Brown. He's trying to minimize himself. You see that? Like he was just a runner. He's trying to minimize his connection to Kells. During this trial, you will come to learn that one thing remained true. Every employee knew their place and quickly learned the rules in a carefully siloed system that R. Kelly arranged to keep staffers unaware of his private dealings. Oh, here we go with the shade. Dry snitching. You see, from the beginning of Milton Brown's employment, he had to follow well-established rules. R. Kelly implemented a system of control and isolation well before and throughout Milton's employment. A system that kept everyone who was not in a need-to-know basis in the dark. You'll hear that guests and employees could not walk around R. Kelly's home or studios freely, if at all. You can't do that at my crib neither. Okay, but anyway, gifts were confined to one space. I'm sorry, guests. Guests were confined to one space, as they should be. Employees had to knock on any given surface and announce themselves before walking into or through any space within the home of his multiple studios. You'll learn that employees were not allowed to speak and sometimes even look at guests. Males, including male friends of R. Kelly's and male staff members, just like Milton, were not to speak to male staff members. And were not to speak to any of R. Kelly's musicians, guests, or female companions. You'll hear from other employees that doing so meant risking their paychecks for days, weeks, months, or ultimately losing their job. So, what did all of this mean for Milton? Well, Milton followed the rules. He kept his head down and did all the odd jobs he was asked to do as an assistant. This is the lens through which the evidence in this trial against Milton should be heard. This is the lens through which the evidence in this trial should be viewed. In 2001, many believed rumors circulating that Kelly had fallen prey to extortion and retaliation. Like many in the world, Milton believed Kelly was being blackmailed with a fake doctored sex tape and that the individuals making these threats were motivated by greed and personal vendettas. This was a common explanation for the rumors around Kelly, one that was adopted by his fans and his employees alike. And those individuals making those threats, they followed through. They released that VHS tape. You'll hear testimony from one of these individuals, Lisa Van Allen, who at that time was in fact attempting and charged with soliciting a bribe. Copies of that tape ended up on the street corners, in people's homes, and ultimately on the internet. Why?
because many people looking through the same lens as Milton Brown and going off limited knowledge of Kelly's life believe the video to be fake. Testimony will show that at that time, as information regarding the tape circulated on the news, Jane, who authorities believe was the female in the VHS tape, denied that it was her. At that time, her mother denied that it was her daughter on the tape. At that time, back in the early 2000s, her father denied that that was her on that tape. Deprived of the benefit of hindsight, knowing nothing more at that time, it was easy for anyone to believe the rumors of a fake sex tape were true. This would have been the extent of Milton's knowledge. This was the lens through which Milton and the members of the general public were looking when they considered these buzzing rumors of a fake sex tape. And in 2008, when a Cook County jury acquitted Kelly of any wrongdoing connected to these tapes, everyone around Kelly believes, affirmed, went on abiding by his unwritten rules meant to control and isolate everyone around him. Milton was no exception. He continued his duties as an assistant, driving as a chauffeur to Kelly and the various artists under his employer's mentorship. Car- carrying Kelly's bags to and from the car and bus, and picking up and dropping off money at Kelly's request. Milton would not have known more than the general public about that, about what was being reported at that time. And the reportedly, I'm sorry, and the reporting at that time certainly suggested that this tape was fake. There will be no direct evidence that Milton knew what was on the VHS tape at issue in this. Let me read that again. There will be no direct evidence that Milton knew what was on the VHS tape at issue in this case. Instead, the government will present circumstantial evidence that Milton might have been aware of some alleged conspiracy. They'll present financial records. For instance, they'll offer testimony about a check written to Milton 15 years ago that the government will argue was used to pay off co-conspirators. But you will learn that Milton routinely carried large amounts of cash for R.Kelly, the celebrity, whether he was on a tour in America or around the world or right here in Chicago, before, during, or after events in question. You will hear that Milton Brown did nothing outside of the course of normal employment duties as an assistant to R. Kelly. Never did he believe that going about his normal everyday work duties, or that by virtue of taking that job, serving as an assistant to R. Kelly, his life would take this dramatic turn. But hindsight is 2020. If anyone asks who R. Kelly is today, you will certainly hear a much different perspective than what you would have heard if someone asked who R. Kelly was at the time in question. Oh, she getting funky. Sitting here today, you have the benefit of hindsight. But back then, when this alleged conspiracy is said to have taken place, Milton did not have that benefit. We are asking that you do not impinge what was gained through decades of investigations across countless government agencies onto what Milton knew to be true back then. We are asking you to look through the same lens available to the world and Milton Brown back then, because as you'll learn, what Milton did and did not know is crucial when weighing his guilt or innocence. Like all of Robert's employees at that time, Milton Brown had very little knowledge of his employer's private life, let alone his most closely guarded secrets. He had no knowledge and no reason to think that the sex tape was genuine. He had no knowledge of the identity of the person on the sex tape. He had no knowledge of who his employer really was. After you have reviewed all of the evidence and listen to all of the testimony through the lens of Milton Brown back then, we are confident that you will find Milton Brown not guilty of these charges. Thank you. The court. Government, call this first witness, please. Miss BonJean, judge, we have a side. Can we have a sidebar real quick? The court. All right. Proceedings heard at sidebar. Okay, y'all. It's redacted. Wait a minute. Why is the screen not moving? Hold on. Let me come back over there. Y'all, hold on. I thought the screen was moving. Y'all, I'm just reading. The screen ain't even moving. Why is the screen? Am I not on the right page? Look, hold on. Oh, duh. I think I should be on that. Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm reading the wrong one. Okay, wait, hold on. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just scroll down to the right part. Okay, so where it say sidebar, that's where I need to be. All right, y'all. Y'all all right over here? Welcome everybody that I miss. Willie Jones, hold on. If anybody's missing their wrench, let me know. I don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody got y'all's and took it off, or if y'all unsubscribed and came back. But hold on. I want to make sure everybody got if your wrench is missing, please let me know. Okay.
Make sure everybody got
Hold on. Oh, let me turn that down. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Somebody is playing with us, y'all. If your wrench is missing again, y'all get the likes up too, please. I need to have 30 likes. Let me get 30 likes, people. 30 likes. Court, did you have a wrench? I can't remember who had wrenches. If your wrench is missing, y'all please let me know real quick so I can give them back to you. V White, what's good? Candy Jones, Elvira, Charlotte Bennett, what's good? So Milton Brown went back to the... See, this is what's wrong. I can't even see the screen. Okay, I ain't gonna worry about it. I'll spaz out later. What to say? Who his employer really was. I don't like how that sounded. Nene, yeah, hit the like button. If anybody else want to be a moderator, let me know. I will give you a wrench. All you got to do is say hello and goodbye to the people, and make sure don't nobody come in here doing no extra cussing and carrying on. Okay, that's it. All right, y'all. All right. All right, I'm going back over there. Yeah, so Milton Brown, attorney, and Milton Brown is throwing Kels under the bus, y'all. BonJean about to get their legs. I promise you. Okay. Let me go back over here. I know she about to be like, oh, no, you didn't. Yeah. Oh, let me go to the redacted part. Yeah, they try to take the people wrenches. Did the wrench go back on there? Okay. All right. I want to be able to see y'all. Yeah, I should have been looking. Y'all get the likes up, please. Get the likes up. Matter of fact, let me check the likes. Moment of silence for the likes. Let me see how y'all trying to... all this reading I'm doing. Oh, no. 36. No, I need 25 more likes. At least 25 before I get started. Let me close out and go back in. I need 25 likes. I don't care if you the ops, you better hit that like button. Y'all can listen. And everybody is welcome as long as you are respectful, okay? Everybody is welcome over here. Like and subscribe and share. I'm about to check it again. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, 22. All right, I just need 3 more. I just need 3 more. And let me find where I'm at. I hope I ain't go too far. Oh, shoot. I think I did. Okay, wait. This is the redacted part. I need 3 more. I'm about to check it. One more. I need one more like. One more like. Y'all, it's very important to hit the like button because that helps share my channel across YouTube. Okay, that's the whole purpose of hitting that like button. Yeah, he trying to get ugly and throw chaos under the bus. All right, I'm finna check it. You see what we doing. It's a lot of reading, but we on it. Very good. Thank you guys for looking out. Good looking out. All right. Dolores, what's good? All right. We about to end the sidebar. The government call is first witness, Miss Pozzalo. The government calls Dr. Daryl Turner, witness sworn in. The court, please be seated. Remove your mask while you testify, sir. Daryl Turner, government's witness, sworn direct examination by Miss Palozzo. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you please state or spell your name for the record? Yes, ma'am. I'm Dr. Daryl Turner, Darrel, and Turner is like it sounds. What is your occupation? I'm a clinical psychologist. Do you have a specialty in your practice? My specialty is forensic psychology with a focus in the area of sexual offending. At a very high level, can you please tell us the difference between clinical psychology and forensic psychology? Sure. I'm working in a clinical capacity, then if I'm working in a clinical capacity, then I'm providing treatment, making diagnosis, treatment plans, recommendations, working at hospitals. And in forensic work, it's basically anytime there's an intersection between the law and psychology. I'd like to start out by asking about your educational background. Can you please give us an overview of your education? Sure, I have a bachelor's and a master's in psychology and counseling psychology, respectively. I have a doctorate or a PhD in clinical psychology from Sam Houston State University. And I completed my pre-doctoral internship at a federal correctional institute for the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Fort Worth, Texas. Are you a licensed clinical psychologist? Yes, ma'am. What does it mean to be licensed? It means different things in different jurisdictions, but for the most part, you have to have, in my case, it was 2,000 hours of supervised practice after you complete everything and you have, and you have your doctorate. Then you have to pass it's called the EPPP, which is our version of the MCAP or something, jurisprudence exams. I had to pass an oral exam in front of the board and then submit for licensure with recommendation letters. And then every year you have to maintain your continuing education units and things like that. In what states are you licensed? Louisiana and Texas. And you stated that you do both clinical psychology and forensic psychology. Focusing on the clinical side, you can describe the different areas that you practice. Yes, ma'am. I'm I'm sorry, with an inpatient psychiatric hospital locally. So I do rounds and help them with testing there. I do a lot of work with veterans who are getting out of the service or have been out of the service trying to get benefits and things like that. I also do testing for adults, but mostly for children, for special education programs and accommodations, things of that nature. And then I'm always involved in research and just basic evaluations that people request for various reasons. People that have substance abuse problems but are trying to get back to work or have access to their children again, things like that. Can you please describe what type of forensic work you do as a psychologist? Sure. A lot of work that I do is competency evaluations, sanity evaluations for public defenders out of Houston. But most of my forensic work is in the area of sexual offending, the risk assessment and evaluation, treatment of sexual offenders. In addition to the work you just described, do you also work as a consultant? Yes, ma'am. In what capacity have you served as a consultant in the area of sex offending in particular? Sometimes I'll be asked to consult on an active serial case of pedophilic offenders or serial rapist case. But remind me of the initial question. I think I got off topic. Do you go with certain agencies, federal agencies, as consultants as well? Yes, ma'am. I work with the FBI, the NCIS, Homeland Security. I work directly with the military. And so those are some of the different agencies that I work with and consult with. But a lot of them, when I'm consulting, I'm working with the victims of sexual abuse. I'm consulted on cases where there's numerous child victims, and I will go in and talk with them. I'm asked to do a lot and with increasing frequency. During your career as a clinical psychologist, have you authored any publications? Yes, ma'am. What are some of the topics of those publications? A lot of what I was just talking about, things like grooming, which and the impact that grooming has on victims of sexual abuse. I've also published a psychopathy and some of the instruments that we use in the field that will probably put everyone to sleep, and risk assessments in general, ethical considerations, and forensic evaluations. And there is an instrument that I've invented that's being published now. In terms of research, can you please describe some of the notable research that you've conducted in the field of psychology? Yes, ma'am. We've done a lot of work in Texas with sex offenders and reoffense rates and looking at things risk factors and protective factors that can raise or lower people's risk. I've worked with a tool called PCLR, which measures the degree to which someone has psychopathic traits. And I've been pretty prolific in that area as it relates to sex offending. And again, I think I might have said this, but I published on grooming, the impact that has wait but I published on grooming and the impact that has on victims long term as well as short term. Do you also present at international and national conferences? Yes, ma'am. As an example, can you tell us about a conference that you presented at earlier this month? Yes, ma'am. I presented at the Dallas Crimes Against Children's Conference, which is the largest conference of its kind in the world. There was about 6,000 people there, and I presented on grooming and the impact on victims. I also asked to be an expert. I was also asked to be asked to expert in a previous conference there about grooming and victim impact. I presented a paraplegic disorders. I presented on paraprolific disorders and fetishes, and I did an introduction of the instrument that I told you about a moment ago. So does your forensic specialty, as you described it, include a focus on grooming practices employed by adult sex offenders who offend against children? Yes, ma'am. That's been my primary focus of testimony and of research. And does your specialty also focus on the dynamics between victims and offenders, including the victim's disclosure of abuse? Yes, ma'am. All of that falls under the umbrella of impact that it has on the victim in many different ways. Do you also testify in court proceedings as an expert in the field of psychology? Yes, ma'am. Approximately how many times have you testified in state and federal court? I will estimate around 100 at this point, 100 times, give or take. In your experience testifying in federal and state courts, does that include testifying in criminal cases? Yes, ma'am. In the state and federal cases that you have testified in, have you testified on behalf of the government? Yes, ma'am. And have you testified on behalf of the defense? Yes, ma'am. Out of all of the testimony that you have offered in federal and state courts, can you estimate how many of these cases were in federal court? I believe, including this testimony, I'm at 25 appearances in federal court to testify. And of those court appearances, how many times have you testified about topics relating to child abuse, including the grooming process and delayed disclosure by victims? Every time I testified in court, it's included. That's been included whether I've been called like this as a blind witness or whether I've done an evaluation, because it has all been those types of cases. Contact victims, CSAM cases. So I've never testified in federal court about competency, for example. It has all been about sexual offending. Regarding your testimony in federal court, does that testimony take place throughout the United States? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Palazzo, Your Honor, at this time, the government requested Dr. Turner be permitted to testify pursuant to Rule 702 on the topics of grooming practices and victim abuser dynamics, including the victim's delayed disclosure of abuse. Any objectives? Ms. BonJean, Judge, may I voir dire at this time? The court, no. You can wait until he is crossed. Miss BonJean, okay. I do have an objection, but I will wait. The court, okay. Objection is overruled. Go ahead. I find him to be an expert by Miss Palazzo. Okay, question. Now, Dr. Turner, I'd like to ask you some questions about your testimony in this case. Have you reviewed any evidence in this case? No, ma'am. And prior to testifying, were you informed of the names of the defendants in this case? Yes, ma'am. And were you informed by the general charges in this case? Yes, ma'am. Aside from that information, have you interviewed or evaluated any of the defendants in this case? No, ma'am. Have you interviewed or evaluated any of the witnesses in this case? No, ma'am. Have you reviewed reports or other evidence documenting any of these facts of the particular case? No, ma'am. So if you are not here to testify about the specific events that occurred in this case, can you please describe the nature of your testimony today? Yes, ma'am. I'm here to testify. Can I ask, is this the jury here? Yes. In the middle of the room? I'm a little lost, all right? I'm here to testify about grooming and what that involves and the impact that has on victims, because the impact and the behavior of victims that are victims of childhood sexual abuse is not what we would expect it to be. And so there's a lot of psychological manipulation that goes on. And I'm here to talk about just those facts in general. So, is your testimony here today based on your education, research, and training and experience? Yes, ma'am. And this includes information you have learned through various studies and work done by other psychologists, correct? Yes, ma'am. As an expert witness, are you being compensated by the United States government for your time in this case today? Yes, ma'am. Now, Dr. Turner, the term grooming has come up a few times during the preliminary questions that I've asked you. Can you please explain to the jury what the general definition of grooming is? Sure. Grooming is behaviors that an adult who desires to have sexual contact with a child engages in to gain access to that child, to maintain access to that child, and to prevent that child from disclosing if possible. When you refer to a child, are you referring to individuals who are under the age of 18? Yes, ma'am. And from birth to the age of 18 is fairly a wide range of ages, correct? Yes, ma'am. In your field, do you have terms that differentiate between young children and older children? Yes, ma'am. And those terms, we look at children as victims as their as either prepubescent victims or post-pubescent victims. Okay? Y'all remember that part right there. Prepubescent, that means before puberty. Post-pubescent means after puberty. Okay? And generally speaking, what is the age range for prepubescent child victims? It's for a prepubescent. Yes. So it would be anything from birth until around 12, 13 years old, something like that. And why is the age typically 12 or 13 when the child is referred to as being post-pubescent? I'm sorry. Why is the age typically 12 or 13 when the child is referred to as being post-pubescent? Because when a child is either almost through with puberty or finished with puberty, there are different hormones and things rushing around their body, and they actually start to think about sex, and they find themselves attracted to people. And we don't see with prepubescent children. I'm sorry, we don't see that with prepubescent children. They're not at that level yet. So the dynamics of grooming and the impact of the abuse, there are a lot of similarities, but there are also, it looks differently when we're talking about post-pubescent versus prepubescent children. Now, you stated that when it comes to grooming, there are some similarities for all children. Can you describe, based on the research and psychological community, some of these methods of grooming that are commonly used for all children, regardless of age? Yes, ma'am. Across research in my I'm sorry. And in my own research, we found that when you talk with sexual offenders, the number one goal is to establish some kind of trusting and close relationship. Now, for younger children, that may be more of a parent role or a friend or something like that. But for post-pubescent, younger teen children, very often we see it with the context of what is proposed to them as a romantic relationship. But that establishing of that relationship and the ways that that is done are the things that are common across ages of victims. And what are some of the other techniques that apply to child victims of all ages aside from the creation of the special relationship that you just discussed? We, I'm sorry, well, we always, I'm sorry, well, we always, there's a few things that we always see in grooming. We always see isolation of the victim by the intended offender. And we see over time, a gradual kind of introduction and normalization with sex with the victim and between the victim and the offender. In other words, letting the victim think that it's okay and that it's something that everyone does and they won't get in trouble and it's a good thing. So just normalizing it over time verbally. And with touching, I should add. Okay, can you elaborate more on how the touching factors into the grooming process? Yes, ma'am. When someone is grooming an intended victim, is very rarely is I'm sorry, very rarely is it an ambush. Kind of all all of a sudden, everything that's going to happen sexually is going to happen right up front. What we see is again, a graduated introduction of sexual themes and sexual ideas. So maybe hugs, and then maybe the hugs become squeezes, and then we see, pats on the bottom, and then that becomes squeezes. So you see a progression. And what that does is that slowly indoctrinates the victim into feeling comfortable with that sexual contact. And it also serves as a kind of testing the waters for the offender, because if the offender gets to a point of the touching where the victim becomes uncomfortable, then it's time to either back up or slow it down or to go to another victim. Is one way to introduce sex based on research conducted in this field showing the victim pornography? Absolutely. And why is that one of the methods of grooming that has come up in the research? In the research in this field. Well, especially since the internet, if you look at old studies that we use to an extent, if you look at current studies, it's all used it's used all the time. What that serves to do is, and it usually starts as kind of like, hey, come look at this funny video, or I accidentally left my pornography up on my laptop and they walked in. Something to that effect. But it's just that, adults and children don't look at pornography together. So it's presented as this sort of, hey, this is just something harmless and fun. And look what they're doing. And and what that does is places that sexuality in the middle of those two people. It's also served in some cases as like a training, because the children are so young that the offenders will show them pornography to I'm sorry, to pornography to kind of show them that they want them to what they want them to do, or train them, that sort of thing. Question. Now you've just described some grooming methods that in your experience are used to groom all children. Looking at post-pubescent children in particular, are there other methods or things introduced to the relationship that are found most commonly with post-pubescent children? Yes, ma'am. And what are some of those? With post-pubescent children, so 13, 14, 15, 16, we see the offenders tend to do things like give alcohol, give drugs, let them get away with things that they're not supposed to do, like being out or staying out, special attention, special focus, less restrictions. And then with post-pubescent victims, we very often see that the relationship is presented to them as, I love you, and this is special, and I know that you love me too. And the world says that this is wrong, but we feel that it's not wrong. And look how magical this is. So it takes often a romantic turn once the child has reached that age. Miss BonJean, Judge, I'm going to object to the doctor's general testimony about often. Does this I'm sorry, about quote unquote often does this. It often, this is very anecdotal. It doesn't sound based in research or any type of. So this is just anecdotal and has no application since he is not examined Mr. Kelly. So I'm going to object to this line of questioning, particularly to the extent that he's talking about we often see this, we often see that. The court overruled. You can tackle that on cross-examination. Miss BonJean, thank you. By Miss Palazzo. Dr. Turner, you mentioned isolation as one of the areas that comes up in grooming research in your experience. Can you describe for the jury more about what you mean by isolation? Sure, the offender is going to try to isolate the victim as much as they can physically. And when it's, I'm sorry, and when it can't happen physically, then there's a lot of contact. There's emails, there's phones, there's social media, there's texting. So, what isolation does, it prevents other people as much as you can isolate the victim. It prevents other people from going, hey, hold on, something's off here. Something's wrong. This doesn't seem right. Is everything okay? The more time the offender can spend with the victim, two things happen. There's less chance of someone else coming in and fixing things. And number two, this gradual indoctrination of sexual ideas and sexuality can continue uninterrupted. So when you refer to the concept of isolation, does that always require physical isolation? As much as is possible, yes. But we do see that happening on, I'm sorry, that happening online now that social media is so big as well. Now, given that your research and experience is in adult offenders and child abuse victims, you have studied the area of power differential and you can explain what that means. Yes, ma'am. For children, an adult is, someone that you have to listen to and that you have to obey. It's someone that has a certain amount of power. And so that power differential is something that makes the grooming process go much smoother because a child is already in a position where they feel like they're a little subservient to the adult anyway. So especially if you have someone that's like a teacher or a coach or a politician or something like that, then you have an even greater power differential. So that's a huge part of the grooming process. And as more time is spent between the offender and the child and the grooming process, as you described it, is ongoing, how does favoritism factor into that process? Favoritism is huge. I've interviewed thousands of sex offenders. I've worked hundreds and hundreds of cases. I've interviewed and done therapy with hundreds of victims. There is much in the majority of these cases. They'll tell you that they felt so special in the offender's eyes. They've received so much attention, so much favoritism. They were their favorite child or favorite student or whatever the case may be. And they were very, very special. And that's what the children want to hear. They want to think. I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's right. So that's how favoritism becomes such an effective grooming tool. Now you can testify that abusers commonly introduce the idea of sex gradually, sometimes through conversations about sex first. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Does the grooming process also include conversations about topics that are not sexual? Almost always. Yes, ma'am. How does that work in the terms of research and experience that you have in this area of grooming? What happens is that as when an offender just spends platonic, healthy attention time with that victim, it does two things. It lowers the victim's defenses And then when people are asking the victim about things, if they do, then the victim can point to all of the just regular conversation that they've had. In addition, when adults find that out and other people become suspicious, it acts this sort of plausible, I'm sorry, it acts as this sort of plausible deniability. Well, hey, it's not, he was talking with her. I spoke with the victim or him, and there was a lot of time that there wasn't any kind of sexuality going on. That happens especially early. So that makes caregivers feel more comfortable allowing this contact to continue, very often unsupervised. Dr. Turner, you mentioned that adults close to the victim may start finding out and asking questions. So, my follow up question on that is, how does the grooming process relate to the child victim's parents or close family members? There is an element of grooming called grooming the environment. For a long time, we studied grooming only in the context of the victims, but about 15 to 20 years ago, there started to be publication that looked at grooming the environment. And that includes parents, teachers, anyone that is going to want to protect the child from an offender. And that's done by things like spending platonic time with children. Sometimes offenders will target children that they have no intention of having a sexual contact with for that plausible deniability. Well, he hung out with Jimmy for years, and Jimmy says nothing ever happened, and that kind of thing. In your experience, are there instances where an offender uses one victim to groom the new victim? Absolutely. And how does that play out in the research that you reviewed? What that does is, for the same reason that offenders will often show child pornography to victims, when another child comes comes to someone as a would-be victim and essentially recruits them, then the child's guard is down, because the thinking is, if it was so bad, if something horrible was happening, this child wouldn't be trying to pull me into that. Very often, the children that do that are children that have already been abused by the person, and the grooming process is in full swing. So they see this person as someone special, that seems as someone special, and they feel like they're doing something to help. So they're usually quite enthusiastic about it. It's kind of surprising. After the offender is successful in establishing a sexual relationship with the child, does the grooming process end? Not at all. No, ma'am. How does the grooming process continue after the adult and a child are having sex? A. After the sexual contact has progressed to the point where it's whatever the adult intended in the first place, there's still an element of keeping the child available for sexual contact. And that's done by this continued reinforcement of whatever special relationship that's been created that's reinforced. And then it also, remember that grooming is, in part, the goal is to prevent disclosure. So the grooming process becomes things like, hey, don't tell, and and it's not, or I'll get in trouble. It's very often we'll get in trouble. You'll get in trouble because the victim is groomed to believe that they're responsible for their own abuse. In situations where the victims are post-pubescent or over 12 or 13 years old, has your research and experience shown whether victims develop romantic feelings toward their abuser? Yes, ma'am. As the victim's love and attachment to the abuser grows, what does your research and experience show that how the victim views her role in a relationship? Well, this happens all the time. Research indicates that law enforcement believes in post-pubescent victims that over half of them truly feel that they're in love with their offender. Miss BonJean, I'm going to object to the use of statistics in the course of his examination. Judge, if you want to do a sidebar, I can give a better argument, but I think statistics are inappropriate. There is authority for that. The court overruled. He is an expert. He can rely upon research that he's considered valuable. Miss BonJean, that's fine, Judge. I'll handle it on cross examination. The witness, can you repeat the question? By Miss Palazzo. Yes, as a victim's love and attachment to the abuser grows, what does your research and experience show about how the victim views her role in a relationship? The victims, especially post-pubescent victims, when the relationship that's created is one that's, coached in love and a very special connection, it becomes less and less likely that the victim will disclose. And it also, we see even well after the abuse has stopped, that a lot of these victims will still be defensive of their offender, will still feel in love with their offender, even into adulthood, will reach out to their offender. And they also feel especially culpable and responsible for what happened to them because of how they were groomed. After the abuse begins and is ongoing, why what does the research show about why a victim does not report it to an adult, such as a parent, teacher, or police officer? A, primarily for because of what I said earlier, because at that age, the grooming is usually, the efforts to prevent disclosure is usually no one is going to believe you. You're going to get in trouble. Something catastrophic is going to happen to your family. We're going to get in trouble. And in about 20% of cases, my research has found that it's replicated by other studies. About a fifth of the time, at that point, the offender can say, if you disclose this to anyone, if you tell anyone, we won't be able to hang out together anymore. We won't have this relationship anymore. And even though that relationship is based on sexual abuse, it has become so important and sensual in those victims' lives that a lot of times they won't disclose, simply not to lose the contact with their offender. Has there been research conducted on the timing of disclosure by child abuse victims? Yes, ma'am. Can you please walk us through what some of those research studies show? There's three very well-known studies that have similar findings. About 60 to 80% of children that are sexually abused don't report it at all until adulthood. About 20 to 25% never report it. About 60% wait at least 5 years before they disclose anything. And that may not be a full disclosure to law enforcement. That just may be telling a friend part of it. So that's what the research indicates across studies, Ms. Palazzo. Your Honor, may I have a moment, please? The court, pardon, Ms. Palazzo. May I have one moment to confer? All right. I have nothing further at this time. Miss BonJean, I'm sorry, the court, Miss BonJean, you can cross-examine. Miss BonJean, thank you, Your Honor. Cross-examination, Miss BonJean. Woo, y'all. Lord have mercy. Y'all get the lights up. Okay, let's get the lights up, y'all. Y'all good over here? All right, now we reading these transcripts. If y'all want me to keep reading, please donate to the channel. And hit the cash app, y'all. Send it to the cash app. That way I can try and get more transcripts. Now we might not be able to get all of them, but we definitely want to get the pertinent ones. Like, um, because I believe today I was wrong, y'all. They saying Rashana Lanfear got up there and testified today. So my first guess was wrong. I didn't think she was gonna testify. I thought she was gonna supply a statement. And I thought that because she was still dealing with Kels, up until recently. So I really didn't see her testifying. So that was shocking to me, but I will have to admit I was wrong about that. But the she testified today, to my understanding, and her cross examination is gonna be tomorrow. So we definitely gotta have them transcripts. So hit the Cash App if you can. Whatever you could donate is Skylife, SKYY Skylife, SKYYELYFE. If you want to donate to the channel, do the super chat or do the super chat or the super sticker. Does anybody else want a wrench? Yes, get the likes up. Let me check them likes. I hope them likes we got 38. That means I need to see 30. I need to see 30 likes in here. I'm gonna have to give me something to drink too. Y'all, so what y'all think? How y'all think it's going? How y'all think it's going? Hey, Phoenix Rising, what's good? Good. How y'all think it's looking? What y'all think about this therapist? Huh? What y'all think about this therapist? BonJean about to get them legs. Okay, 32. I could do 32. All right, let me get a drink. Wet my palate. Okay, we about to go back over and read. If anybody want to rank, let me know. All right, going back over to read. Why is it so small? Hold on. That's why. Because you was on the wrong page, stupid. Now it's bigger. I hope y'all can see it. I don't know why my page is small. Oh, Father. Exit full screen layout. I don't know why that's like that. All right, we going back in it. Okay. Damn, we had 34 out of 101. Woo, child. By Miss BonJean. Good afternoon, Dr. Turner. Good afternoon, ma'am. First of all, to be clear, you've never met my client, Mr. Kelly, correct? Never. You never met any of the witnesses in this case who are going to testify, right? Correct. You've not examined Mr. Kelly, correct? No, ma'am. You've not examined any of the complaining witnesses. Am I right about that? You're right. Have you watched the docuseries Surviving R.Kelly? No, ma'am. You have no idea whether the charges lodged against my client, I'm sorry. You have no idea whether the charges lodged against my clients are in fact true or false or somewhere in between, right? I have no idea and no opinion on that matter. And you, in fact, don't even know whether my client has ever engaged in any grooming of anyone, do you? No, ma'am, no idea. And isn't it true that not all people who are alleged sex offenders even engage in grooming? We don't see grooming when they are ambushed, like grabbing people from a parking lot or something like that. Attacks or opportunistic attacks, usually involving substance intoxication. But any long-term abuse, I've I've not seen or worked or read about a case that didn't involve grooming of some kind. Where you provided a number of articles to the government that you're really on for to, I guess, develop your opinions here, right? Let me make a comment right here. BonJean is ice cold right here. Cause she basically came in established out of all that you done said, all that stuff you done said, You ain't never identified, you ain't never talked to Mr. Kelly, and you haven't talked to the witnesses. So basically everything you were saying is in general. Okay, it's not specific to the witnesses, and it's not specific to R. Kelly. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference between a public defender and an attorney. You know what I'm saying? You got to get down to the fine details of this shit, man. This is, I mean, she just came out. Y'all just listen to how she came back and defended that. Then she said you didn't see the documentary, so you don't have no idea about what's going on, what any of these witnesses said. So she's separating Kels from basically everything that came up there and said. Let me keep reading. Let me go back. You have no idea whether the charges lodged against my client are in fact true or false or somewhere in between, right? I have no idea and no opinion on the matter. And you, in fact, don't even know whether my client has ever engaged in any grooming of anyone, do you? No, ma'am, no idea. And isn't it true that not all people who are alleged sex offenders engage in grooming? We don't see. Okay, I read that. Well, you provided a number of articles to the government that you rely on to, I guess, develop your opinions here, right? Yes, ma'am. One of them was called the self-regulation model of the sexual grooming. Is that familiar? Yes, ma'am. And even in that article, which I assume you're familiar with since you provided it, right? Yes, ma'am. The authors there, the scholars say that many, but not all sex offenders demonstrate behaviors that could be identified as grooming. Isn't that right? Yes, ma'am. I want to go back to your credentials a little bit. You said something about a doctorate and a PhD. Which one are you? A doctorate or a PhD? She's right. There's a clear difference. They're interchangeable. It's the same thing. Well, do you have a PhD like your certificate, like that you graduated from, or do you have a psych D? PS or psych D? It's not it's a PhD. Okay. And you said your interest was in your area of interest was sex offending and risk assessment, right? Yes, ma'am. In fact, your dissertation was on civil commitment of the violent sexual offenders, right? Correct. And to be clear, you just graduated with your doctorate about what, a little over 10 years ago? Yes, ma'am. And you become a clinical licensed psychologist in 2013. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Do you hold a faculty position? Any faculty positions? I did. I don't anymore. You're not a professor at any institute of higher learning presently. Is that right? Not presently. Not anymore. Yes, ma'am. You had some teaching experience at the University of Phoenix, right? And Argosy. I'm sorry, in Argosy, and also at the school that I graduated from, McNeese State University. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And University of Phoenix is an online school, right? Right. It doesn't have a graduate program, right? I know I've taught graduate classes. I can't remember if they were at Phoenix or not. Stop it, y'all. Do y'all hear this? You can't remember where you taught graduate classes? Let me tell y'all something. Okay, let me finish reading what he said. I know I've taught graduate classes. I can't remember if they were at Phoenix or not. That was several years ago. I haven't done that in a while. Let me tell y'all something. I might not remember everything, but when it comes down to, especially if you a teacher and you in academia, you know whether you taught something when you taught, you know whether you taught it or not. Now you might not remember what subject or something like that, but you know if you taught, you know what I'm saying? Get the hell out of here. Let me keep going. Where did you teach graduate classes? I taught graduate classes at the university where I got my bachelor's and master's degree from. And then I also taught graduate level classes, I believe, at Argosy. And when was that? That would have been 2014, 2015, something like that. And to be clear, your opinions here today are based on your personal clinical experience and stuff you read, right? They're based on my research. They're based on the body of research in our field, and they're based on my training and experience. Yes, ma'am. And let's talk about your training. After you earned a license, you worked as a staff psychologist in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, right? Yes, ma'am. You treated prisoners. You were I guess, a psychologist that treated prisoners in the Bureau of Prisons, right? Yes, ma'am. All types of prisoners, not just sex offenders, correct? Correct. And I guess you also treated victims there because rape is obviously something that happens inside prisons, right? Yes, ma'am. You indicated that you treated victims of sexual abuse, but you haven't treated child victims of sexual abuse, right? No, ma'am. Oh, he said, no, ma'am, I have. And in what context have you treated child victims of sexual abuse? Ooh, she was good. She tried to slip them up right there. She almost got me in case I didn't keep reading. Let me look what she did. You indicated you treated victims of sexual abuse, but you haven't treated child victims of sexual abuse, right? No, ma'am, I have. He caught it and came back. And in what context have you treated child victims of sexual abuse? Locally, sometimes when I'm asked to consult on a case, it's only to work with the victims. And that happens fairly often. I do work with adult victims of childhood sexual abuse, but I have a lot of experience working with children just coming out of abusive relationships, helping them normalize what happened to them and understand they're not the only person that has these feelings and these experiences. Then I'm sorry, and then also I've worked some civil cases involving schools or state homes for children that were systematically sexual abused, and I work with those victims and as well. So I have a lot of experience in that. When you say quote unquote work, do you mean forensically examine them? Yes, ma'am. Sometimes forensics examinations to look for things like PTSD and make treatment recommendations and things if I'm sorry, if they're not in my area, but I wouldn't, first of all, I wouldn't do an evaluation and recommend that someone sees me for treatment. That would be unethical. But I do see victims strictly for treatment that are children. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so and that's part of your private practice. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And do you keep data about the information that you've learned through your clinical treatment of victims? How do you mean? I'm sorry. How do you mean do I keep data? Well, you testify here in the response to the government about we always see this, or in almost all cases this. I'm wondering if you actually kept data from your clinical experience that allows you to make these types of sweeping statements. Yes. So you do keep data like this. Where are you keeping it? In a file and then studying it? How? How do you do that? Yes. Okay. So you have that data? Yes. And have you used that data in connection with any studies? Yes. Okay. What studies? I've designed an instrument that looks at denial patterns for, because I treat sex offenders as well, for sex offenders that are in treatment. And then also as I work with victims. So that's one, I'm sorry. So that one's impress. What? Let me read it again. And then also, as I've worked with victims, so that's one's impress. It's about to be, well, it's being published. And then also, I have a study that we started about 6 months ago where we work with childhood victims and we look at things like sexually problematic behaviors and what they're acting out or not acting out looks like when the abuse has stopped before or after treatment. Okay, but the first thing you mentioned was working with sex offenders. I was talking specifically about child victims of sexual abuse. I thought you were asking about my records from from these types of cases. No, I specifically asking about child victims. Okay, well, I'll answer that in the second half. I'm sorry about the digression. That's all right. You actually never published anything about child sex abuse, have you? No, I have. The grooming study that was published looks at the impact of grooming on the victims and delayed disclosure. Yes, ma'am. Question: are you talking grooming of other offense related behaviors? I think that's right. It has been a while since I've looked at it. Okay, and where is that published? That was a professional conference, so it went through a peer review process of researchers and psychologists, the same as it would as a journal. And so we consider that a publication. You consider it a publication? No, ma'am. Our field would consider that a publication. Well, somebody wanted to Google Scholar wanted to go to Google Scholar. You know what Google Scholar is, right? Yes, ma'am. What is it? It's a search engine for research articles. And that article would not come up there, would it? No, ma'am. It wasn't published in a journal. It it wasn't published in any scholarly publication, right? Correct. It was published at a professional meeting. Well, you presented at a professional meeting, but it wasn't published in a scholarly journal, right? No, ma'am. I present all over the world at professional meetings, and I don't consider all those publications. But that one went through a peer review process. It was a professional meeting. And those are considered publications by anyone in my field. I'm not just padding my CV. I don't need to do that. She said, um, and that particular publication actually looked at offenders' self-reporting behaviors, right? Correct. You didn't speak to any victims in connection with that study, did you? No, ma'am. But the article talks about the impact on victims, right? Um, I'm sorry, about no, ma'am, but the article talks about impact on victims. Right. You've concluded that the impacts are on victims based on your conversations with offenders. Well, no, ma'am. I'm making those conclusions based on my work with victims. Okay. Your article that you say is published does not involve any interviews with children or even adults who were victims of sexual abuse, does it? You see how she breaking that down, y'all? Woo-wee! BonJean is a cold thing. Let me keep reading. No, ma'am. And in fact, on your CV, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see any publications on the area of that focus on child sexual abuse victims. No, ma'am. I haven't published something with that name. Well, how about anything like that focused on actually looking at the child victim's point of view? I didn't see anything like that. No, ma'am, no publications, just experience and education and training. And you could agree that as a psychologist, when you draw general conclusions about a population of people, you need to base those conclusions from a sample that would be representative of that population, right? Yes, ma'am. Are y'all listening to this? Man. Yes, ma'am. And we can agree that people in prison does not necessarily reflect a general population. I I don't know why we're talking about people in prison, but I would agree with that. Yes, ma'am. Well, a lot of your work was in prison work, correct? No, ma'am. I was supervised towards my licensure while I worked in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and I did work with offenders there, but the majority of my work with victims has been in my private practice. Right. And you stated your private practice in what year? 2012 under supervision and 2013 as a licensed psychologist. Okay. How much are you being compensated here today? 250 an hour. All right. How much have you charged the government for your work on this case? I think 2 hours at this point. So, not counting today would be more, but prior to today, 2 hours. Okay. So, you've committed all of 2 hours of preparation for your testimony here today. Is that right? Right. Not having to interview anyone or review any evidence really cuts down the amount of time that I have to bill. Question. Now, isn't it true that among scholars, the definition of grooming is not really a set definition? There's a lot of disagreement among scholars about what grooming is, right? I wouldn't agree with that statement. Dude holding out. She went away from it and came back. Woo, BonJean's a beast, y'all. I'm telling y'all, are you listening? She went away from that, took him all the way somewhere else, asked him about child victims. Now she came back again with asking him about this grooming thing. Okay. Um, Now, isn't it true that among scholars, the definition of grooming is not really a set definition? There's a lot of disagreement among scholars about what grooming is, right? I wouldn't agree with that statement. Well, let's see. In this article, one of these articles that you looked at, give me 1 second. Well, the first sentence actually of this, a self regulation model of sexual grooming, says that numerous commentators, however, have documented difficulties in defining and understanding the process, giving its transient nature and its specificity to this one form of criminal behavior. Isn't that right? That's what the article says. Yes, ma'am. There is a reason for that, though. And isn't that just that article? There's quite a few articles that discuss the difficulty in defining grooming, right? I don't know about quite a few, but everyone wants to be the person that gives grooming the definition that everyone uses. My definition is something that I think anyone can understand. Did y'all hear his response? There's people there's people a lot smarter than me that publish stuff and they can have at the definition. So they can argue about who's right and who's wrong. But in general, it's what I said. It's behaviors designed to have access to victims, keep access to victims, create a bond, and prevent disclosure. I think everyone would agree with that. Okay. Well, you didn't agree with that yourself when you testified back in, let's see, 2012. Has your understanding of grooming evolved since then? I'm sure it has. Yes, ma'am. That's a long time, and there's a lot of research coming out. Right. So that's back to my point. The scholars have some disagreement among themselves about what qualifies as grooming, right? There, there may be some disagreement. Yes, ma'am. Ooh, she broke them. Yes, she said there. There may be some disagreement. Yes, ma'am. on the specific wording of the definitions. But again, in general, I mean, grooming is something, it's the same as depression. People might differ as to what they think depression really is, but we all know what depression is as practitioners. Well, when you testified back in 2012 in federal court, you were asked about what what is meant by grooming, and you answered that grooming is a term used to describe behaviors that offenders engage in, primarily keep victims to get victims not to tell. Okay, yes, ma'am. Today, your testimony is grooming is more than that, right? Sure. I've learned a lot in 11 years. I think I was an intern at that point. Yes, ma'am. You were testifying in federal court as an intern. Yes, ma'am. You were qualified as an expert when you were an intern. I don't remember. I had my supervisor there, and I think it was just one of those, just let's let this kid get on the stand and have a, have that experience sort of thing. Woo! BonJean. Man, she is like steering this dude. Oh my God. There was a defendant there that was being charged with the crime, right? Miss Palazzo. I object to talking about a defendant in another case. I don't know what the witness even knows. He may not know specifically what case we're talking about. The court is cross examination. Let's move it along. By Miss BonJean. Yes, you testified in a criminal case as an intern, and just your view is just let the kid get on the stand and see how well he does. Answer: well, I'm being light about it, but I was the one that had done the evaluation. So my supervisor who went over the evaluation was there. She testified, and then I testified. It was a competency hearing. He wasn't competent. Okay, now you claim to be an expert in, well, before you were there, I want to ask a couple of other questions. I'm sorry. You talk about my research. The research, one of the factors of grooming you talked about was this, that I guess victims see that as a romantic relationship. Is that right? Post-pubescent victims mostly. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you can point me to the research that you're relying on for that. Yes, ma'am. There's research about sexually problematic behavior, and that's by a researcher named in Louisiana, we would say Herbert. I think it's Herbert here, maybe. But they talk about the sexually problematic behaviors that you see in prepubescent children, and then they talk about how it's more of a relationship, more of a sexual romantic relationship when they're older children. Okay, this isn't research you conducted, right? No, ma'am. You're not an experimental psychologist, are you? You don't have to be an experimental psychologist to conduct research, ma'am. Well, we all could read the article, I guess, and apparently take the stand and testify about it. But I'm asking you whether this research you conducted. I don't think anyone in this room could read that article and get on the stand and testify as an expert. I spent my last 15 years of my life studying this. Okay. And you pointed us to a paper that was original research by another person, right? Correct. You said we always see isolation. What do you mean we always see? Who's we? Professionals, people that work these cases, and always sounds like 100% of the time. Or were you being casual? Well, as I testified earlier, we don't see it in these ambush opportunistic sexual abuse cases, but anytime there's interaction with an offender and a victim over time, I've never worked a case or read about a case where there wasn't effort to isolate the victim in some capacity. Do you have any research that supports your view, your opinion, that there is always an element of isolation in sexual abuse, child sexual abuse cases? Well, it's not always, as I just said, depending on the type of case it is, but fair enough. Taking out the ambush, the jumping out of the bushes rape situation, taking that out, do you have any data to back up your claim that we always see isolation? Across studies in my research on grooming, I found that. And then there are other authors that I could name if you want me to, that talk about isolation as being probably the most frequent behaviors that's seen in the grooming process. And again, this isn't original research you've done working with victims. This is stuff that you have read and studied, right? Right. But my research on grooming involving offenders, we learned about that as well. You identified other factors such as normalizing of sexual behavior, right? Yes, ma'am. Again, this is data that you have learned from reading other people's original research, right? And from interviewing I'm sorry, and from interviewing thousands of sex offenders, interviewing and working and treating hundreds of victims, and my education and training. Yes, ma'am. You say thousands of sex offenders? Answer, easily, yes, ma'am. You mentioned things such as showing the victim pornography, right? Yes, ma'am. Again, this is a factor that you derive from what research? That's a study by Woloch. And then there is a more recent study by, I believe it's Dr. Finkelmore. I'm sorry, Finkelhor, looking at pre-internet and post-internet grooming techniques and how the use of showing pornography, producing child pornography of the victims has increased exponentially since the internet explosion, or whatever you want to call it. Now, you also discussed on direct examination, delayed disclosure, or something known as counterintuitive behaviors of sexual assault. Is that the term you familiar with? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you talked about some of the data around delayed disclosure of victims of sexual abuse, right? Yes, ma'am. And are you differentiating between child sexual abuse from intrafamiliar family versus non-family? There are some differences that we see, but I was asked about in general, so I was responding in general. But you provided an article about that I assume you relied on, called Variables and Delayed Disclosure of Child Sexual Abuse. Yes, ma'am. And do you rely did you rely on that article as a basis for your opinion about delayed disclosure? Yes, ma'am. But that article deals primarily with like incest and intrafamiliar child abuse, doesn't it? Yes, ma'am. Do you have any reason to believe that this case is a case about incest? I have no idea. You don't even have the basic understanding of this case. Is that right? Absolutely not. You also relied on a paper called Prevalence of Childhood Sexual Abuse and timing of disclosure in a representative sample of adults from Quebec. Yes? Yes. Was that the article that you were relying on when you were talking about your statistics about delayed disclosure? No, ma'am. Those are three articles from three of the leading researchers in that area, and their findings were the same. So I was citing three different studies. Were they the same? It looks like there's a collection of retrospective studies in that seem to be not all consistent with one another. You're always going to be able to find research that is higher or lower than other research. But the general findings about a more respected higher tier publications are the statistics that I gave to the jury earlier. In fact, is there a general consensus? Isn't there that, well, that there is disclosure at the time of abuse by a good third of children, of child sexual abuse victims? Right. Again, that's going to vary from study to study. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that that's not necessarily disclosure to law enforcement or to a parent. So it may be disclosure that doesn't go anywhere. And there's statistics about how many sex offenses ended up in arrests and convictions, and it's very, very small. I hope you guys see what's happening here. She's basically breaking down his testimony and challenging him on his own knowledge that he has reported on. When she keeps saying that this is information that you studied, that you developed, she's challenging him knowing this information or just reading it just like anybody else doing reading comprehension. If you're coming on here as I don't know what they would call him, but as a knowledgeable witness, they probably call it something else legally, but you coming on here as a knowledge base, but you're not coming on here as something that you actually studied and developed yourself and created. You're just coming up here telling us what you read. So that's like me going reading a book and I'm up here reporting to you, okay, well, I read this and this is what most scientists say. Okay, that's what she's doing when she's challenging him on that. Now she's got him pinned down and she's asking him about different publications and basic information that's going on in his field of work. Okay, let me keep reading. Okay, so let me start right here. Answer again, that's going to vary from study to study. So she's breaking down his knowledge of what he has set up here and presented as a knowledge base. Okay, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that that's not necessarily disclosure to law enforcement or to a parent. So it may be disclosure, but it doesn't go anywhere. And there are statistics about how many sex offenses end up in arrests and convictions, and it's very, very small. Yeah, I wasn't really asking you about that. I'm relying on the study that you provided, that you were relying on, that demonstrates that depending on which study you're looking at least a third up to 87%, there is childhood disclosure of sexual abuse. Okay. Question, are you disagreeing? It sounds different than what you testified to on direct. So I guess I'm trying to get clarity. Answer, I think that study has some other good things in it. I think that those findings aren't commiserated with what most of the findings in the field and the research over the years have been. Right there. She got them right there. Because now She broke down, okay, the information that he used to provide to justify his statements. She just broke into that. Okay. BonJean is a beast, man. This is a good attorney. She's good. Very swifty, slick, and swift. Okay, let me keep reading. I think you know that study has other good things in it, and I think those findings aren't commensurate with what most of the findings in the field and the research over the years have been. Well, this was a retrospective study of, it was a meta-analysis. What's a meta-analysis? It's a study of studies. Right. So these were 11 different studies were looked at, right? Yes, ma'am. And this is what you provided. This is not even something I'm pulling out of Google Scholar and hitting you with. This is something you've provided. And it actually does show a range of childhood disclosure from about a third to 87% in this retrospective study, right? Right. Al, right. She got him right there. So basically, remember he kept saying, most of the people don't disclose. Most of the young kids don't disclose. She basically read his same article, broke down what the article was, and said it was metadata, and came back and got him to have to admit that there is a percentage of disclosure. So she's basically discrediting this dude right in front of our face, y'all. Cold thing. She's a cold thing. Because right here he said, right. Al, right. Dr. Turner, one reason sometimes there's delayed disclosure is because there's false reporting, right? That only happens in about 4% of cases, and usually that's in a child custody or divorce proceeding. Where are you getting your data that it only happens in about 4% of cases? That's a study by McClendon, who's a psychologist out of Scotland, I believe. Are you familiar with D. Zutter? A recent study about the rates of false reporting being much higher than that. I'm not, no ma'am. You certainly are aware that there are recognized motivations for false reporting. Scholars agree on that, right? Yes, ma'am. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what some of the motivations are for false reporting? The most common ones, as I said, are custody situations or divorce proceedings where there's a lot of stake in custody of the children is at stake. That's when we see most false reporting. Well, give me a second. Are you familiar with the scholar D. Zutter and his paper, Motives for Filing a False Allegation? I'm not, no ma'am. Okay. And false allegations, you mentioned a scenario of when there was some type of custody dispute, but motives for false reporting are generally accepted in the scholarly community for in 8 different categories. Isn't that right? I know, again, I'm not familiar with him or his article. What about Canaan? Are you familiar with Canaan? I believe I read an article by Canaan, Dr. Canaan. Yes, before. Yes, ma'am. And a list of motives by Canaan. The most cited list of motives include material gain, alibis, revenge, sympathy, attention, a disturbed mental state, relabeling, or regret. Are you familiar with Canaan's work on identifying those of false reporting or motives for false reporting? No, ma'am, I'm not. But that's very different from what I'm talking about. A lot of those that you just said could be lumped into these custody and divorce proceedings, renaming and regret and things like that. So, I mean, it sounds good, sounds right. Question. You talked about isolating as a feature. Have you ever had a case where an offender allegedly will isolate an entire family? I have. Yes, ma'am. And in that particular case, were the parents involved? Yes. And were they complicit in the sexual abuse of the child? No, ma'am. Not in the case I'm thinking of. No, ma'am. Have you seen that though? Yes. Miss BonJean, give me a second, Your Honor. The court, are you almost finished? Miss BonJean, I'm almost finished. You are the court, you are finished, or you're almost finished. I have a couple more questions. I overlooked one area I want to look back to by Miss BonJean. Question. I hope y'all caught that she's basically almost flipped this dude into becoming her witness. Okay. Let me keep going. You discussed sort of the difference between prepubescent and postpubescent, right? Yes, ma'am. And you put an age on it, but that's not the age itself is not, it's a hard line, correct? Correct. I was citing the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5 that we use for diagnosing and things like that. They give a general age like that. But of course, when you have more information about the development of the child, you would use that because it varies for children. That's correct. I even know that. Right. Because it does depend in part of the development of the child, right? Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. When they actually go through puberty, right? Of course. And again, you have no independent information about the circumstances of the alleged victims in this case, correct? Correct. Miss BonJean, I have nothing further, Your Honor. Okay, we will take a 15-minute recess. We have to switch court reporters and the jury can go out. Jury out. Where up there was a change in reporters. Y'all, BonJean is a cold thing. Let me come see what y'all doing. Do you see what she did? She basically done flipped this dude to being her witness and backing up her questions that she put out. He came out bumping, y'all. He was rocking, you know what I'm saying? He had the information, yeah. Prepubescent, the kids is 12, 13, and 14. No, he said that was post-pubescent, you know what I'm saying? He came with the information, and by the end of her cross-examining this dude, she flipped this dude. Boy, y'all better quit playing with me. Hey, lady goddess, welcome to the channel. I think you knew. Everybody make sure y'all subscribe. If I see y'all name me here, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Lil Mac, what's good? Welcome back. Lil Mo, welcome back. Dolores, welcome back. Y'all hear this? BonJean is a bad thing, y'all. I'm so glad we got her. What you say? You said, I'm not convinced with RL. Her testimony today, it sounds rehearsed. Oh yeah, I can't wait. I want them transcripts. I'm gonna say it again. If you all could donate anything to the channel, Mark Quinn, what's good? Welcome back. His dates are like the government, far few and in between. That's right. If you could donate anything to my Cash App so I can get more transcripts, I definitely want to get the today's. And I definitely want to get the cross-examination of Rashana. That'll be today and tomorrow. So anything you could send, I appreciate it. Lottie Willis Espinoza, what's good? Welcome to the channel. Make sure you subscribe, baby. Can I have a wrench? Good morning. Yeah, you can have a wrench. Look, I ain't even look. You new to the channel. We'll try you out, Lottie Willis Espinoza. Make sure when people come in, you say hello and goodbye. Just welcome my guests. Make sure you don't block the wrong people, and make sure nobody coming here talking about nobody and cussing and acting a fool. Okay. Let me find your name, Lottie. I hope you still in here, Lottie. All right, Lottie. I gave you a range, Lottie. I think the therapist is saying a lot of facts. You know what, Dolores? He was banging, and then BonJean got on his neck and legs. What's good, Phoenix Rising? All right, y'all. Let me see where we at. Okay, let me know. Do y'all want to stop right here? Y'all want me to stop right here and pick up later? Or what y'all want me to do? Or keep reading? I might be able to go a little more. Let me see how many more pages we got. Woo! I think we might be able to finish this. It say 58. I think we can get through it. Okay, put a yes in the chat if you want me to keep going. Put a no in the chat if you want me to stop. I think I want to go ahead and just get it done. Carmel, what's good, baby? Low end, what's good? I ain't seen you in a minute, low end. Where you been, girl? Huh? Where you been? Okay, yes. I think yes means keep going. Okay. Mark Queen. Okay. I keep going. Carmel, if anybody's wrench is missing, please make sure y'all tell me. I don't know what's going on. Everybody make sure you subscribe, because the next couple times that we go live, I put it on subscriber mode only. Okay. So if you're not subscribed, your comment is not going to come through. Also, everybody, if you could donate $5, $10, anything to the Cash App so we can get more transcripts, please help out in this situation. Y'all know I normally don't be pressing y'all. I might be asking, but I really need y'all help, because I at least want tomorrow, the next day. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear Rashana, what her cross. The rest of them, I don't know if I'm really tripping on that, but I want to get the next couple days at least. I used to have for the crazy people. I hear you. She said, I'm about to do my exercise and drink some coffee and listen. Okay, we about to keep listening. Okay, I'm about to keep going. All right, we finna get done. All right, y'all, hold down the fort. Make sure y'all welcome. I hope y'all welcoming people now. Y'all with these ranches. Oh, yeah, good job. Chi-Town, finest. Let's go. Welcoming the people, girl. Okay, I'm about to read again. All right, y'all, we finna finish now. Let me get something to drink. Gotta wet the palate. I'll tell you this. If Kels get convicted, I don't think nobody else could have did it like BonJean. I'll tell you that. She doing a good job. I mean, she's swift and tricky. You know, the same, most attorneys are like that though. They're trying to take you somewhere else and ask you the same thing multiple times, you know, you know. But she's still good. But we praying for not guilty. All right, here we go. Turner cross by judge. Jury in. The court, please be seated. Any questions on behalf of Mr. McDavid? No questions, Your Honor. On behalf of Mr. Brown? Yes, Judge. Yes, Judge. You may question him. Thank you. Cross-examine on behalf of defendant Brown by Miss Judge. One of the reasons an offender engages in grooming, you said, is to keep an unlawful sexual relationship secret, correct? Yes, ma'am. And the technique of hold on. And the technique of isolation or isolating victims is also done by an offender to prevent others from understanding or knowing about an unlawful sexual relationship, correct? Yes, ma'am. And if I could add, it's also to reinforce the grooming process across time. But yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that answer? Yes, ma'am. It's also the purpose of that is not only it destroys the victim's frame of reference. So it prevents other people from providing a frame of reference, and it reinforces what they're being told about sex and sexuality. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. In your experience, do offenders engaging in unlawful sexual relationships also engage at the same time with lawful sexual relationships or sex with adults? Yes, ma'am, it can happen. And in your opinion, does it happen as a method to deter others from thinking that they're having relationships with unlawful relationships? Miss BonJean, objection. Foundation. The court, objection overruled. I'm not sure I understood the question, but I did lodge a foundation objection to that question. The court, okay. He can answer by the witness. Answer. Do you mind repeating it, please? By Miss Judge. Question. Sure, I'll try and make it clearer. Now, it was fine. I just forgot what it was. In your experience, do individual offenders who have sex with minors also have sex with adults? And you said yes, correct? Yes, ma'am. And then my follow up question was, in your opinion, do sexual offenders have sex with adults as part of the cover up or part of the grooming? It depends. It can happen. When you diagnose someone with pedophilia, which is a sexual arousal of the prepubescent children, or Phoebe, I'm sorry, hebephilia, which is a sexual arousal to 13, 14, 15, you put a specifier as exclusive or non-exclusive. And that means either only attracted to children or they're also attracted to adults. So sometimes what you're saying can happen sort of like a beard kind of to hide what's really going on. But sometimes they can have functionally healthy sexual relationships with adults while still offending against children. Question. In your experience, is that unusual to have sexual relationships, healthy relationships with both adults, and then also become someone who has sex with minors? I would not characterize that as usual. No, ma'am. One last question. In your opinion, can it be difficult for others to recognize grooming while it's happening? Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. The court redirect. Miss Palazzo, none from the government, Your Honor. Okay, you can step down. Thank you, Your Honor. Witness excused. Call your next witness, Mr. Julian, Your Honor. The government calls Ann Mecklenburg. Ann Mecklenburg, plaintiff's witness sworn. Can you remove your mask while testifying? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Julian, you may question the witness. Yes, Your Honor. Direct examination. Mr. Julian, good afternoon, ma'am. Hi. Could you please state your name and spell it? Yes, it's Ann Mecklenburg, ANNM, like Mary, ECKELBORG. Miss Mecklenburg, for who do you work? I work for the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences Incorporated, which is also the Recording Academy. I'm just going to call it the Recording Academy, okay? That's fine. What does the Recording Academy do? We are a membership organization and reproduce Grammy Awards. What is your role at the Recording Academy? I'm the Senior Managing Director of Contract Administration and the Corporate Secretary for the organization. So, what are your duties as the Senior Managing Director for the Contract Administration and Corporate Secretary? So I oversee all the documents and all the files and paperwork that comes through the organization at a fairly high level, and all the different departments manage their own items, but then it all comes up through my office. Are you the custodian of certain records for the Recording Academy? Correct, yes. What types of records would you be the custodian of records for? Well, for each department, so the awards department, the marketing, sponsorship, all the contracts that we do, production, everything like that comes up through the organization, the membership. You're saying that you're the custodian of records for all of those departments? Correct. So I want to ask you about awards for a couple of moments. What types of records does your Recording Academy keep with respect to awards? You mentioned the Grammys earlier in your testimony. Answer. So the awards department manages the history of the organization's awards for nominations and the awards that are given out. Also manages the submission process. So there's online entry program. Artists submit their recordings for the prior year, and then that process is managed. And then the membership votes on those for that year, and then the decisions are made at the awards show. Question. So I think you just told the jury a little bit about awards history that the Recording Academy might keep year to year. Is that fair? Correct. Yeah. The Recordings Academy keep records with respect to a specific artist. Yes, every single artist. When you say every single artist, would that mean that if someone's nominated or has been nominated for a Grammy Award or won a Grammy Award, the Recording Academy will keep records of that artist, tracking those things? Correct. Do you know if the Recording Academy keeps records with respect to an artist known as R.Kelly? Yes, we do. Have you reviewed records relating to any awards history for the artist named R.Kelly? Yes, I have. Mr. Julian, Your Honor, I want to publish for the witness, not for the jury, an exhibit. And this is just for the witness, not for the jury yet. This is on the computer. Brief pause. Mr. Julian, Your Honor, can we have a moment? The court. Have you got a hard copy you can show her while you're trying to get this to work? Mr. Julian, well, she can see it. It's just I'm going to clear out this other stuff. Brief pause by Mr. Jillian. Miss Meckleberg, I think we got this fixed. Do you see an exhibit in front of you that's marked as Government Exhibit 329? I do. Have you ever seen this document before? I have. Can you tell the jury that it is it's a detailed history report for Grammy wins for R. Kelly, and this appears in wins and nominations. Does this appear to be a multiple document? Yes. So that's 1 page, 2 page, 3 pages, correct? Is that right? Correct. And earlier you told the jury that you're the custodian of certain records, and among those records would be an award history for a particular artist. Yes, this document that you're looking at, Government's Exhibit 329, is this a record for which you are the custodian? Yes. And you reviewed this record prior to coming here to testify today? Yes. Mr. Jillian, Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of Government's Exhibit. Court. An objection, Ms. BonJean. No objection. It's admitted. You may publish it. Government Exhibit 329 received in evidence. Mr. Julian. So, Ms. Meckleberg, I'm showing the jury what's been admitted into evidence as Government Exhibit 329. And I want to direct you to the top left where I'm hovering a mouse. You should see something that says nominations and wins. Do you see that? I do. And there also is an artist name listed here. Do you see that? I do. Can you tell the jury that the artist name that's listed there, it's R.Kelly? Can you tell the jury based on what you're looking at in Government's Exhibit 329, how many nominations, and we're talking about Grammy Awards, how many nominations Mr. Kelly has received? Answer, 26. And would this be, I'm sorry, question. And would this be lifetime? So from the first time he was nominated for an award to the present day? Answer, this, yes. This is what we have on record. And there's a column on tabulation for wins. Do you see that? Answer, I do. Can you tell the jury what that number is? Answer, 3. Question. I'm going to scroll down to, actually, I'm going to leave it on the first page, but direct your attention to the columns or rows on the bottom half of Government's Exhibit 329. So there's a column that says Best Male R&B Performance. Do you see that? I do. Can you tell the jury what is the column? What is row? I'm sorry. What this row is, rather, that we're looking at here? Miss BonJean, counsel, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because you were leaning down. Can you tell me where you're directing us at? Mr. Jillian, so I'm hovering a mouse in the middle of Government's Exhibit 329 and about the middle of the page, and I'm asking Miss Meckelberg to tell the jury what is detailed in this row. By the witness, answer. So that's the win for Best R&B. I think it's vocal performance for I Believe I Can Fly by R.Kelly. It was from 1997. Mr. Jillian. Question. How about in the row right below that one? Also the same song. It's a win for Best Rhythm and Blues Song. I Can Believe I Can Fly, 1997. And how about the row right beneath that one? And then finally, same song, 1997, best song written specifically for a motion picture or television? Question. And the rest of this record that we're looking at in Exhibit 329, could you tell the jury what would be what we will be looking at? For example, if there's a row of information without a win listed next to it, what that means? That means it was a nominated song. So if I were to scroll through Government's Exhibit 329, I would see 26 entries in total for nominations, with those 3 wins that you just told the jury about for I Believe I Can Fly in 1997. Answer, correct, yes. Miss Meckelberg, do you know whether Mr. Kelly, the artist R. Kelly, in fact performed at the Grammys at one point? Yes, he did. So in 1998, the 40th Grammy Awards, he performed the song I Believe I Can Fly. Can we go into unpublished mode for a moment by Mr. Jillian? Question. Miss Meckelberg, I'm going to play a couple seconds of the video for you, just to, you tell me if you recognize it, okay? Said video was played in open court. Okay, so they played I Believe I Could Fly. By Mr. Jillian. Question. So I played about 20 seconds of what I've shown to you as Government's Exhibit 4. Miss Meckelberg, did you recognize the video that I just played? Yes, I did. What was the video that I just played for you? That's a snippet of the 40th Grammy Awards. Government Exhibit 4, you say, is a snippet of the Grammy Awards. How are you familiar with that record? Answer. That's part of our records, the custodian records. We maintain all of our copyrighted footage from our television shows. And the Government Exhibit 4 specifically, is this something, or 104 rather, Is this a record that you actually put in the request to go out and get? I did. Yeah. Mr. Jillian, Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of Exhibit 104 into evidence. Any objection? Brindley, no objection. The court is submitted. Ms. BonJean, no objection. The court admitted. You may publish government exhibit number 104 received into evidence. Mr. Jillian, could you make sure our sound is on? I've got it turned all the way up. I didn't hear anything. Brief pause. It's working now, Mr. Jillian. Miss Mecklenburg, I'm going to play a minute and a half of Government Exhibit 4 that was admitted into evidence, and I'll ask you some questions about it, okay? Okay. Said video was played in open court by Mr. Julian. Okay, question. Miss Mecklenburg, there appeared to be on Government's Exhibit 4 that I was just playing for you a yellow timestamp across the bottom of the screen. Did you see that when I was playing? Yes, I did. I'm showing you, Mr. Jillian. Can we go into unpublished mode? Actually, by Mr. Jillian. Question. I'm showing you what's now marked as Government's Exhibit 104. Government's Exhibit 104 that I'm showing you. Does this appear to be a screenshot of Government's Exhibit 4 that you were just reviewing? It does. And does there appear to be a yellow timestamp on Government Exhibit 104? Yes, there does. Is that timestamp 9/9/37/11? Yes. Your Honor, at this time, I move for admission of Government 104 into evidence. Any objection? Brindley, no objection. It's admitted. You may publish it. Government 104 received in evidence. Question. Ms. Mecklenburg, the government's looking at Exhibit 104 with respect to Government's Exhibit 4 that I just played for you and Government Exhibit 104 that we're looking at right now. Does this appear to be a performance given by the artist artist known as R.Kelly at the Grammy Awards? Yes, it does. And does this appear to be a performance of the song I Believe I Can Fly? Yes, it does. Government Exhibit 104, does that appear to just be a screenshot of the performance that we were just reviewing? Yes, it does. Mr. Julian, give me one moment, Your Honor. Brief. No further questions. Cross-examination. Ms. BonJean, you may cross. Ms. BonJean, I'm coming. Cross-examination on behalf of defendant Kelly by Ms. BonJean. Good afternoon, Ms. Mecklenburg. Hi. Hi. You are the custodian records for the Recording Academy. Is that right? Correct. Yeah. And do you actually maintain a copy of the actual album that wins when someone wins a Grammy? Yes, we do in most cases, but we no longer receive submissions by albums. Now it's digital. So, right. It depends on what we're talking about. But yes, we will probably have the R.Kelly. I didn't pull that from our archives, but we do keep an archive of everything that's won. Question, right? So, going back to the 90s, I guess you maintain an archive, and it would be your understanding that the album I Believe I Can Fly, there will be some type of copy of it there. Answer, I believe so, yes. And with all the paperwork or like the inserts and any other performers who were on the album also be included? Yes. And you didn't take it? You didn't have a chance to look at those albums in any detail? Is that right? Answer, I didn't pull any physical copies. Question, were you aware that the complaining victim's father in this case was on the album Love Letter, which was nominated for a Grammy in 2011? I was not aware of that, no. All right. What about, were you aware that the complaining witness's father was on an album called The Chocolate Factory in 2003. I was not aware of that. And he did get a nomination for both of those albums for Grammys, right? A. I cannot speak to that directly. Question, well, can you look at? I have to look it up. Well, do you have the record in front of you? We just admitted it into evidence. Do you need a copy of it? Oh, if it, yes, if it's on the history, I'd have to look up the name again and question. Sure? Answer. Confirm that. I'm sorry. Mr. Jillian, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar? BonJean tripping up the lady, y'all. Bye, BonJean. I'm going to give you a paper copy if you don't mind. That's great. Thanks. Question, a little easier. Miss BonJean, may I approach the judge? The court, you don't need to ask permission to approach. None of the lawyers, if they approach the witness, has to ask permission. Just do it. Miss BonJean, got it. Document tendered by Miss BonJean. Question. Okay, quickly, Miss Mecklenburg. Are you able to confirm that Mr. R.Kelly was nominated in 1999 for a track known as When a Woman's Fed Up? Do you see that at the top of page 2 of this document? I do. Are you able to tell us whether or not the complaining victim's father was the guitarist on that track? No, because question. Okay. Answer. It's just an artist nomination. So would he have, if the artist is nominated, does that mean that his support ensemble also gets nominated? Answer, no. It's specifically an artist category, and the rest would be receive participant acknowledgement. Question, I see. And then in 1999, he was also nominated for an R&B album and being Mr. Kelly called The R. Do you see that? Answer, I do. Question, and are you able to tell us whether the complaining witness's father was a guitarist on a particular album? What was the name? Answer, what was the name? Mr. Jillian, Your Honor, Miss BonJean, I'm not. Mr. Jillian, can we have a sidebar? Miss BonJean, relax. I'm not going to be announcing names. Mr. Jillian, well, I'm going to sidebar about something different. The court, no. Mr. Jillian, can we have a sidebar? The court. She says, well, let's move on. Ask another question. BonJean, okay. Bye, Miss BonJean. I think the name you're using is Brandon, but that doesn't mean anything to you, does it? No, it does not. Question. Okay. Would your answer be the same for the album that he was nominated, he being R. Kelly, was nominated for in 2003, The Chocolate Factory? Yes, my answer would be the same. And that was nominated for the Best Contemporary R&B Album, right? Answer, yes. Okay. And can you tell us whether the complaining victim's father was nominated or was a guitarist on that particular album, right? A. Answer, that's correct. And then finally, in 2011, Mr. Kelly was nominated for an album called Love Letter, right? Do you see that? I do. Okay. And my question is the same. Are you able to tell us whether or not the complaining victim's father was on that album as a guitarist? Answer, no. Correct. I cannot tell you that. Question, is that something you could get if you wanted to look? If you went back to your archives, is that information you could obtain if you were asked to obtain it? If that information was contained in a jacket of the album and we had the album, question, right? The government didn't ask you to bring that information, right? No, I didn't. No, they didn't. Miss BonJean, thank you. The court, any questions? Mr. Brindley, no. Nothing on behalf of Mr. Brown. Julian, hang on 1 second. All right, you could step down. Call your next witness. Mr. Julian, Judge, can you give us a second? Brief pause. Nothing further, Your Honor. You could step down. Witness excused. Call your next witness. The government calls Detective Dan Everett. Dan Everett, plaintiff's witness sworn. The court may, you may remove your mask when you testify, sir. You may question a witness. Direct examination by Mr. Julian. All right, you guys. They about to, let me check on y'all real quick. They about to examine the a detective. So basically, I don't understand what they getting at, y'all. Why are they asking about the complaining witness's father? Was he trying to act like he was supposed to get recognition for Kels's Grammy? Like, or are they trying to see if this guy was working for Kels at the time? Like, what are they trying to establish with that? I'm not understanding. Wouldn't the tape be considered fruit of the poisonous tree? I would think so. Be right back, Skyye. Okay. Carmel. All right, let me check these likes. I know I should have at least 40 likes by now. We get them up slowly but goody. All right, y'all. Let me check my likes. See where my likes is at. Go out and come back in. Then we finna finish this reading and get out of here. Make sure y'all hit the subscribe button. Subscribe with all y'all fake accounts. All y'all fake accounts, subscribe to the channel. Make sure y'all share. Okay, you can share the content as long as you shout me out. Okay, I'm fair. Just shout my channel out. Okay, let's see where my likes is at. Woo! 46. Go, y'all. Go, y'all. Go, go. Okay, I'm finna finish reading. All right, y'all. Hold the fort now. I'll be on the other side. I can't see what's cracking. All right. Yep, finish reading. Okay. Direct examination by Mr. Jillian. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Would you please tell us your name and spell your name? My name is Daniel Everett. Everett. Sir, are you retired? I am. What was your most recent employer before you retired? Chicago, the police department. How long did you work for Chicago Police Department? I worked for the Chicago Police Department 29 years and 6 months. When did you start for the Chicago Police Department? I began on January 3rd, 1977. Woo! He been there since ancient times, 77. What was your title when you began working for the Chicago Police Department? Patrol officer. What was your title when you retired? Police detective. At some point in your career with Chicago Police Department, did you begin to investigate child abuse matters? I did. And approximately when was that? 1993, I was promoted to youth officer. Did you ever work in what's referred to as a special investigations unit? I did. What's the special investigations unit? The special investigations unit is a specialized unit within a Chicago Police Department that investigates. They're focused on child abuse victims under the age of 13, along with other minors that may have been abused by family members or by anybody with a position of authority. Special Investigations Unit also conducted internet crimes against children, which included child exploitation and child pornography. Why did you start in the special? I'm sorry, when did you start in the Special Investigations Unit? It was January 1999. How long did you work in that Special Investigations Unit? For approximately 7 years until I retired in 2006. What was your job title when you were working in the Special Investigations Unit? It was investigation, youth investigator. At that, I'm sorry. And at one time, we were transitioned and our title was changed to detectives. Did the duties change from you when you were an investigator to being a detective? No, not at all. So, as either an investigator or a detective in the Special Investigations Unit, what were your duties? Our duties were to investigate, again, child abuse, mainly Special Investigations Unit was internet crimes against children and child pornography. So, right now, I want to ask you about the time period of October 2000. Based on what you told us already, were you working as either an investigator or a detective in a special investigations unit in October 2000? Answer: yes, I was. In October 2000, did you receive an investigative assignment relating to a minor we're referring to in this case as Jane? Yes, I did. Question: how did you receive that information? I was Answer: I was assigned the investigation from my Sergeant Chisweski. Now, did you take any investigative steps based on receiving the information that you received from your sergeant? Yes, we did. What was the nature of the information that you received? The nature of the information, first of all, it was from an anonymous complainant. Miss BonJean, I'm going to object to any eliciting of hearsay. Miss Julian, I rephrase the question. Judge, all right. Mr. Julian, without being specific, can you just a high at a high level tell the jury what was the nature of the information that you received from your sergeant? We received information of allegations of child sexual abuse from regarding a known celebrity with a minor child. Was the minor child who was the subject of the information that you received, was the minor child Jane? Yes. Did you take some investigative steps based on receiving that information with respect to Jane? We did. Did you go out and interview Jane and Jane's family after receiving that information? Miss BonJean, objection to leading. Mr. Julian, just foundation, overruled. Did you go out and interview Jane and her family after receiving that information? I did. And approximately what month and year was it when you went to interview Jane's family? It was December of 2000. Where did that interview take place? At a small shoe store in Oak Park, Illinois. Who was present with you when you went to do that interview? It was myself and my partner, Joe Reyes. Is Joe Reyes also either an investigator or a detective? Yes, he was. Who was present beside you and Detective Reyes? Who was present at the shoe store when you conducted the interview? Well, Jane was present at the store along with her mother and her father. Now, did you interview, if anybody, that day? We interviewed the mother and the father and then interviewed Jane. I want to focus on your interview of Jane right now. Did you ask specifically Jane whether there was a sexual relationship between Jane and Robert Kelly? I did. What did Jane say in response to that question? Jane informed me that Robert Kelly was her godfather and he would never abuse her and would never do anything like that to her. You mentioned that you also interviewed Jane's parents that day. I did. Did the account from Jane's parents contradict the account from Jane in any way? Nope. It was very similar. Based on those three interviews that you just told the jury about, did you take any further investigative action? Can you repeat that? Yeah. Based on those three interviews you just told us about, did you take any further action? Well, we We made out our police reports and basically unfounded the investigation at that point. And what was the basic for your recommending that the investigation be unfounded at that point? Well, we had an alleged victim telling us that no crime was committed with her and along with her parents. Statements were, Mr. Julian, can I publish something to him? Mr. Julian, question. Detective, I want to show you what's marked as Government's Exhibit 315. It should be on the screen in front of you. Do you see what's marked as Exhibit 315? It's being published to the jury right now. If we could just, Mr. Julian, do you see that? Detective, I do. Have you seen Government Exhibit 315 before? Yes, I have. And can you tell what is this? It's a report that we submitted after we were informed in October 2000 of the allegations of R.Kelly with a minor. Question: how did you recognize this report? Well, my name, star number are on it, along with my partner's name, star number, and our commanding officer. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this. So this appears to be a 2-page document. Yes. And I'm showing you the second page of the Government Exhibit 315. Yes. Do you see that? Yes. Do you see your name on the second page of Government Exhibit 315? I do. And is there a signature? Is there a signature? Yes, that is my signature. Yes. Is government exhibit, with the exception of being heavily redacted, is this fair and accurate copy of Government Exhibit 315 from the last time you saw it? It does. Mr. Jillian, at this time, I move for Government Exhibit 315 in the evidence. Any objection? Ms. BonJean, Judge, yes. Let me look at the redacted version real quick. Mr. Brinley, we object to hearsay, Judge. The court, pardon? Mr. Jillian, he had a hearsay objection. And I can respond to that, Your Honor. The court, well, I don't think, well, it's, Ms. BonJean, I mean, it's a police report that is, I don't think, the court, I don't think it's being offered as for the truth, so it wouldn't be hearsay. That's exactly what it is, Your Honor. Mr. Jillian, that's exactly what it is, Your Honor. Mr. Brinley, Judge, I withdraw the objection in fact. The court. All right, Ms. BonJean, hold on one second, Judge. Mr. Brinley, Mr. Thomas's made me think better of it. The court. All right. What about Miss BonJean? Are you still? Give me. I'm coming, Judge. The court. All right. Brief pause. Miss BonJean, not offered for truth nor objection. The court. All right. It's entered into evidence, and you may publish it. Government Exhibit 315 received in evidence by Mr. Jillian. Question. So, Detective Everett, now we're showing the jury what's been admitted into evidence as Government Exhibit 315. You just told me a little bit about this. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here in Exhibit 315? Yes, basically, it's a summarization of the allegations that we received in October along with the December 2000 when we went to the shoe store and interviewed Jane and her parents. Now, Detective Everett, I'm scrolling to the second page of Government Exhibit 315. Do you see some entries on the second page of Government Exhibit 315? Yes. The interview you just told me and the jury about with Jane, is that an interview documented in summary form on the second page of Government Exhibit 315? Yes, it is. If you could, I'm hovering over a mouse about the bottom quarter of the first full paragraph, the Government Exhibit 315, and there's a RI. Can you tell the jury what R/I stands for? its reporting investigators. Would you mind reading this sentence for the jury? Answer. Reporting investigators then interviewed and redacted and was informed by her that she had never been sexually abused in any manner by her godfather, Robert Kelly. She indicated that these indications are completely untrue and is treated very well by Robert Kelly. Question. At the very bottom of this report, in the second page of the government's Exhibit 315, there are the words unfounded in all caps. Can you tell the jury what that's about? Again, after interviewing the parties, we unfounded it basically because we did not have any statements from Jane or her parents substantiating what the charges were or the allegations were. Question. At the sentence and that sentence you just read to the jury, would that have been part of your basis for recommending that this investigation be closed as unfounded? Yes. Have you seen an unredacted version of this report, detective? I have. Is Jane's age documented somewhere on this report? The unredacted version? Yes. So we're clear. We were. This investigation about you, we're telling the jury about in December of 2000. Did this investigation involve a minor? Yes, it did. Thank you. So, detective, now I want to ask you about approximately December of 2001. So, about a year later, do you know if a new investigation was opened in about December of 2001 concerning Jane and Robert Kelly? Yes. I'm going to fast forward to the following year, February 1st of 2002. Without getting into the specifics, did you receive a copy of a videotape? Yes, I did. Who did you receive that videotape from? From Jim Derogatis of the Chicago Sun-Times. And who is Jim Derogatis? Jim Derogatis at the time was a music critic for the Chicago Sun-Times. Man, y'all, he been hating for a long time. 2002. Question. Fair to say he's a reporter, a news person? Yes. After receiving that videotape from Mr. Derogatis, did you watch the videotape? Yes, I did. The same day? Yes. Generally speaking, what was depicted on the videotape? It was a male adult performing various sexual acts with the young looking female. At the time that you watched that videotape, so February 1st, 2002, did you realize the young looking female on the tape? Did you recognize the young looking female on the tape? I did. And who did you recognize that young looking female to be? I recognized her as Jane that we interviewed back in December of 2000. And how did you recognize her as being Jane? From her facial features. It was because you met Jane in person. Exactly. Yes. Do you, as you sit here now, when that video was recorded, the video you got in February of 2002? No, I do not know. Let me clarify that. Do you, as you sit here now, do you know when that video was recorded? The video you got in February of 2002? No, I do not. Question. At the time you were reviewing it, so on February 1st, 2002, based on what you know about the investigation, would Jane have been under the age of 18 on that date and time? Miss BonJean. I'm sorry, objection. On what date? Mr. Julian, February 1st, 2002. Miss BonJean, thank you. By the witness, answer yes. Mr. Julian, question. On August 15th, so now I'm coming to the present time this year, Monday, August 15th this year, did you review a copy of a video? Yes, I did. Did you view the same video this morning? I did. Give me 1 second. Brief pause. Document tendered. Question, detective, I just handed you what's marked as Exhibit 1. Have you seen that disc before? I have. When did you last see that disc? This morning. How do you know that you saw that disc this morning? I initialized it and I dated it. Did you review the contents of that disc? I did. Is there a video on that disc? Yes. The video that you saw on that disc that you have in your hand, Exhibit 1, did it appear to be consistent with the video that you received back in February of 2002 from Jim Derogatis? Yes, it is. I'll take that back from you. Document tendered. Mr. Jillian, so now, detective, I want to come back to 2002 February after you got the tape from Mr. Derogatis. At any point in the month of February 2002, the members of law enforcement go out to the address 1010 West George Street in Chicago? Yes. Did law enforcement, well, you tell me, when did law enforcement approximately go to the residence at, residence 1010 West George Street? I don't recall the exact date. Could it have been about February 11th of 2002? Yes. Yes, could have been. Yeah. Did law enforcement have contact with the contractor at that home? Yes. And ultimately, did law enforcement receive consent to enter into that home? Yes. After law enforcement received consent to enter into 1010 West George Street, were you pulled out of the property? I was. Did you go? I did. And what, if anything, did you observe relevant to your investigation when you arrived at 1010 West George Street? Answer, I observed several similarities that I viewed in the videotape back in February that matched, different parts of the settings in the residence of 1010 George. And what, if anything, did you do after you observed those similarities? We requested the evidence technician. Do you know what evidence the technician came out and took some photographs? He did. So, detectives, I'm going to show you what's marked as Government Exhibit 112. And some of these have a number 112 followed by a letter. I'm showing you right now what's marked as Government Exhibit 112U. We got 7 pages, y'all. We almost done. Answer. Okay. You're going to do this as a group. Okay. Question. We're going to do this as a group. So, you have seen Government Exhibit 112U before. I did. I have. What does Government Exhibit 112U appear to depict? Answer, it's a cover sheet that the crime lab or evidence technician will use upon being assigned an assignment. In this case, they would put on the upper line, put the police report number, the type of incident, and the date and time, and then the evidence technician's name, star number, and unit of assignment. Do you remember? Do you see a date in Exhibit 112U? Yes, I do. And what was the date? February 11, 2002. Do you see an offense incident in Government Exhibit 112U? Yes, I do. Can you tell me what offense incident is? Child pornography. There is a photographer's name. Do you see that? Yes. Do you know who that person is? Yes. Who is that? That was the evidence technician. So now I'm going to the Government Exhibits 112A. You've seen Government Exhibit 112A before, yes? What's Government Exhibit 112A depict? That's the building at 110 George that we entered, and that appears the front entrance. And did you go in this building? Yes, we did. Do you see a date in the bottom right corner of Government Exhibit 112A? Yes. Can you tell what does that date appear to be? February 11, 2002. Does Government Exhibit 112A fairly and accurately depict the outside of 110 West George Street on February 11, 2002? Yes, it does. I'm going to show you what's marked as Government Exhibit 112B. Have you seen Government Exhibit 112B before? I have. What is it? That is the rear entrance of the same building. Does Government Exhibit 112B fairly and accurately depict the rear entrance of 110 West George Street on February 11, 2002? It does. How does Government Exhibit 112F? No, how about Government Exhibit 112F? Have you seen that before? Yes, I have. What is it? That's the inside of the building that we were at, and it's again the same setting that I saw in the video. Do you see a date in the bottom right corner of Government Exhibit 112F? I do. And what's that date? February 11, 2002. Does Government Exhibit 112F fairly and accurately depict the room? I'm sorry, pick a room in 110 West George Street as you observed it on February 11, 2002? It does. Now I'm showing you Government Exhibit 112D. What is this? Basically a different angle of the same room that from the last exhibit. And does that photograph, Government Exhibit 112D, fairly and accurately depict that room in 110 West George Street as it appeared on February 11, 2002? It does. I'm showing you what's marked as Government Exhibit 112Q. Have you seen Government Exhibit 112Q before? Yes. What is it? Answer: bedroom in the same building. You went into this room? I believe I did. Does Government Exhibit 112Q fairly and accurately depict this room that you observed in a residence on 1010 West George Street on February 11, 2002? It does. Mr. Jillian, Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of Government Exhibits 112U, A, B, F, D, Q into evidence. Any objection? No response. The court, hearing none, they're admitted. You may publish. Aforementioned exhibits received into evidence by Mr. Julian. Question: so, Detective Everett, now we're showing the jury what's been admitted into evidence as Government Exhibit 112U, and you told me a little bit about this a moment ago. There's a photographer's name here. Do you see that? I do. Was that the evidence technician you called out that day? Yes. Is it fair to say, based on what the jury's now looking at in Government Exhibit 112U, and based on the answer you gave me when I was asking about this, that there's some sort of child pornography investigation that's going on? Yes. What child pornography investigation was ongoing when these pictures were taken? The investigation regarding the videotape that we have received. So now I'm showing you and the jury what's admitted into evidence as Government Exhibit 112A. What's depicted in Government Exhibit 112A, the rest or the building at 110 West George Street, the front entrance? Question: I'm showing you now and the jury what's being admitted into evidence as Government Exhibit 112B. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at in Government Exhibit 112B? The same building, the rear entrance. Can you tell the jury what they are seeing in Government Exhibit 112F? Again, this is inside the same building, which I recognize as the same what in the video where the sexual acts were taking place. Question: I'm going to show you Government Exhibit 112D, and I'm going to ask you a follow-up question about that. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at in Government Exhibit 112D? Answer: again, the inside of the building where several other acts took place, probably a different angle than the last photo. Question: at what makes you say, with respect to Government Exhibit 112F and D, that several of the acts took place in this room based on your review of the video. After viewing the video, it was very obvious that this was the setting where it took place. Is that why you called out the evidence tech? Yes. So earlier during your direct examination, you say that you saw some things that were consistent with the videotape. Is that correct? Yes. Was this the room that you were talking about? Yes, it is. Thank you, detective. The following day, after going out to 1010 West George Street and having an evidence technician take these photographs, did you attempt to interview Jane's family again? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I said the following day. So, still in February 2002, February 12th, right? Did you attempt to interview Jane's family again? We did. We attempted, yes. You said you attempted. What do you mean by that? Let me take a sip, y'all. Yeah, dry mouth. Y'all make sure them likes is up. Okay, we did. We attempted, yes. You said you attempted. What do you mean by that? We were unsuccessful in contacting them, making contact with them. Why were you unsuccessful? Miss BonJean, objection, speculation, objection sustained. Oh, finally. Unless he, by Mr. Jillian. Detective, did you report to what you knew to be Jane and Jane's family's residence? I did. Were you able to make contact with them in a residence? No, I wasn't. Was not. Give me a moment, Your Honor. Brief pause by Mr. Jillian. Detective, I want to ask you a couple more questions about Government Exhibit 1. You said you reviewed the contents of that disc. Did you watch the video in its entirety? I did. Objection, foundation of when? I'm sorry, BonJean, objection, foundation of when? Mr. Jillian, I'll rephrase the question for honor. The court, okay, when? Go ahead. Ask him when and then, Mr. Jillian. Question. So let's break it down into a couple of questions. Detective, on February of 2002, did you watch the video that you received from the reporter Jim Dare Goddess in its entirety? Yes, I did. On Monday of this week, did you watch what's marked as government exhibit, that video in its entirety? Yes, I did. This morning, did you watch what's marked as government exhibit 1 in its entirety? Yes, I did. Did you initial the disc after watching it in its entirety? Yes, I did. Mr. Jillian, nothing further. Your Honor, court. Okay, we'll suspend until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll have cross-examination then. We certify that the foregoing is a correct transcript from the record of the proceedings of the above a title matter. Woo! August 18th, 2002. Okay, wait a minute. That must be when she signed it. Woo, y'all. We made it. Father. We made it, y'all. Lord have mercy. Okay. Let me remove this. What's good, little mama? Hey, little mama. Welcome back. Linda Alexander, little mama, welcome back. Let's see what you said. These words on his record. Chi-Town here too. Y'all, we did it. Okay. So Jim Dare Goddess is the one who brought the first tape to the police in 2000. Did they say 2000? Yeah. In 2000. And they did an investigation. They talked to the family of the Landfares and did an investigation in 2001. and also went to the alleged home. Hey, nothing nice. What's good? That's right, free Kels. Nene B. Hey, baby girl. 310. Welcome, welcome. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me see who got a wrench and who don't. Okay. Dang, Chi-Town the only one. Okay. Good job, Chi-Town, holding it down. Okay. I thought some more people had wrenches. We got to get Chi-Town. We got to get you some help, girl. Uh-huh. Okay. So that's it, you guys. We gonna wrap it up. Again, if you could donate anything to the Cash App so we can get more transcripts, it's going to be welcome. I at least want to try and get I guess what happened today. They said Rashana testified today and she will be cross-examined by BonJean tomorrow. So that'll be at least 3 days. You could put it in the Cash App. Send it to the Cash App so I can get it quickly. And the Cash App is $ Skylyfe, SKYYELYFE. That's also the proper way to spell my name. Okay. And that's it, you guys. So thank you guys for coming. That's the transcript from the opening arguments. There's another document that was in there. I'm not sure what that was, but I'll take a look at it. But once I get the next transcripts, I will go ahead and read them. But also you guys can do super chats and you could do super thanks also in the comment area if you want to donate to the channel. So thank everybody for subscribing. Make sure you guys subscribe and share the information. If you share information from my channel, all you got to do is shout me out. That's all I ask, is shout the channel out. Okay. So thank you to everybody who donated to the channel. Thank you for the moderators, Chi-Town, holding it down. And we're going to get out of here. Okay. So let me find the beat. You know, we going out on 3-piece again. We are. Okay. Thank y'all for hitting the like button too. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Yep, we're gonna go out on one of my favorite songs. Mine as well. I didn't play it earlier. Okay. All right, you guys. Pray for Kels. Pray for BonJean. Pray for his whole defense team. Free Kels. We throwing down to all the haters and lifting up everybody who supports Kels. And that's it. Thank you for coming. Make sure you all subscribe and we'll be back again. As always, do everything in God's divine order. Do everything in the spirit of righteousness to make sure righteousness prevails. All right, you guys. We going out of here. Skylife loves y'all. Uh-oh. Hold on. Oh, duh. Got the wrong phone. We want to get the good sound. Okay. Turn the volume up. Sorry. I know that makes a sound with the mic. Sorry. All right, we going out on my favorite song.
Showing me a sign when you wanna be satisfied.
Young Sky Killer.
I'ma be faithful to you, baby. Shorty, you're all I need. You're all I need. Shorty, the time is right. The time is right. Shorty, I'll take my time. Gonna take my time, yeah. Shorty, I promise. And I promise, and I promise to you. I'll make you, gonna make your body you.
Thank you. Sing, boy.
To make your body shake, as strong as it takes. Yes. As long as I have to go, we can do it till you can't take no more. Satisfied for sure, satisfied for sure, satisfied for sure. As many gigs as it takes to make your body shake, as many strokes as it takes. As long as I have to go, we can do it till you can't take no more. Satisfied for sure, satisfied for sure, satisfied for sure, baby. Say it new, say it now, say it new. Your body say it all, baby. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Do you hear the sound? Do you hear the sound? Do you hear the sound, baby? My body's going, my tongue is going, your body's going, your body's going. Oh yeah.
Sing, boy, sing. Shout out to 3-Piece, y'all. Shout out to 3-Piece. Y'all pray for Chicago. Free Kels. Pray for our city. Thank you, Chi-Town. Thank you, Carmel. All right, you guys. We out of here. Chicago, stand up. South Side, East Side.